Hey everyone, if you're tuning in, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments where and when you're watching from. Now imagine this. Really let it sink in. The year is 1347, and a brutal, unforgiving winter grips the land. You wake up, not gently, but with a jarring lurch, like surfacing from a deep, troubled sleep. Your muscles ache, every joint a protest, and a dull throb echoes behind your eyes. But it's not the physical discomfort that truly pierces the fog of your mind. No, it's the smell. It hits you first, a damp, earthy scent, cloying and heavy, mixed with something sharp, metallic, like old rust. Then, beneath that, a fainter, more insidious aroma, the ghost of wood smoke long extinguished, mingling with the musty breath of forgotten cloth and something else, something vaguely sweet and sickly, perhaps mold or decay. It's an odor that assaults your senses, yet at the same time, it clutches at a primal core deep inside you. It's a scent of abandonment, but also, impossibly, a scent of home. You push yourself up, your limbs stiff and uncooperative, groaning softly as your body objects to the sudden movement. The ground beneath you is cold, hard-packed earth, dusted with a fine layer of grit that clings to your rough tunic. Your fingers brush against something cold and brittle, a fragment of dried leaf, or perhaps ancient straw. Your eyes, still heavy with sleep and uncertainty, strain in the oppressive gloom. The only light trickles in through a single, narrow opening, high up, painting the air with dancing motes of dust that seem to swirl in slow, mournful eddies. As your vision slowly clears, you start to make out the room around you. High, uneven walls of rough-hewn stone, patched haphazardly in places, loom in the semi-darkness. Cobwebs, thick as old parchment, stretch between exposed beams above, catching the faint light like tattered banners. The air itself feels ancient, stagnant, as if it hasn't stirred in a generation. You try to take a deeper breath, to clear the lingering stench from your nostrils, but it only seems to draw more of the heavy, familiar yet foreign air into your lungs. You stumble forward, one hand reaching out, grazing a cold, damp stone surface. It feels like reaching back through time, touching a memory you can't quite grasp. This place, there's a flicker of recognition, a distant echo. The proportions, the strange angle of a crumbling archway over what must have been a hearth, now choked with rubble and ash. It feels like a dream you once lived, now twisted and warped by a long absence. The silence is profound, broken only by your own ragged breathing and the distant drip of water, somewhere deeper within the structure. It's a silence that speaks volumes, telling you that whatever life once thrived here has long since vanished. You stand there, a stranger in a place that should be your sanctuary, realizing that sometimes the most painful discovery isn't finding something new, but recognizing what you've lost, even when it's right in front of you. The silence inside your forgotten home, heavy and absolute, pushes you forward, towards the faint sliver of light you'd spotted earlier. Each hesitant step crunches on forgotten debris, a mournful soundtrack to your return. You reach the doorway, a gaping maw of splintered wood and crumbling stone, and push against the heavy, resisting frame. With a groan of tortured timber, it gives way, not with a grand opening, but with a reluctant, protesting shift. Instantly, the air changes. The stale, musty breath of the interior is replaced by a rush of cold, damp wind that whips past your face, carrying with it 1,000 tiny needles of moisture. Rain. It's a relentless, pervasive drizzle, not a downpour, but a persistent weeping from the sky, as if the heavens themselves are in mourning. You step out fully, shielding your eyes for a moment against the sudden, if dim, expanse of gray. The world outside is a canvas of muted despair, The familiar cobblestone path that once led to your door is now overgrown, choked with tenacious weeds and slick with moss. A few steps further, and a droplet, cold and sharp, splashes onto your lips. You taste it. Not the clean, refreshing taste you might expect, but something else. A metallic tang like old blood, mixed with the grit of a forgotten road and the indescribable bitterness of profound loss. It's the taste of a world left behind, eroded by time and neglect, a flavor that seeps deeper than your tongue, settling heavy in your chest. You look around, your gaze sweeping across what was once a bustling village square. Now, it's a skeletal parody of memory. Buildings stand like hollowed-out husks, their windows empty sockets staring blankly at the persistent rain. Roofs have caved in, beams jutting upwards like broken bones. No smoke curls from chimneys. No children's laughter echoes in the damp air. No familiar faces peer from doorways. Not even a stray dog barks. Only the endless, monotonous shush of the rain against collapsing structures answers your unspoken questions. The disappointment is a physical ache, a cold knot tightening in your stomach. You'd envisioned a homecoming, perhaps not triumphant, but at least a recognizable return to what you left behind. Instead, you found a graveyard of hopes, a landscape that reflects the very grudges and abandonment that brought you back. The air is thick, with the weight of it all, a silent accusation hanging between you and the desolate scene. You stand there, soaked through, feeling the raw, undeniable truth. Sometimes, the promise of glory only leads you to a colder, emptier reality than the one you bravely departed. The persistent drone of the rain, a constant companion to your desolate survey of the village, is suddenly punctuated by something else. A faint, almost imperceptible murmur. It's a human sound, low and indistinct, carried on the damp air. A startling contrast to the profound silence you've grown accustomed to. Your head snaps up, your gaze instinctively drawn towards the cluster of huts near the old church, the only structures that don't appear utterly ruined. A faint wisp of smoke, barely visible against the gray sky, curls from one of their crumbling chimneys, a sign of recent life. Hope, fragile and desperate, sparks within you, a tiny flame in the pervasive chill. You move, not quickly, but with a renewed purpose, your boots squelching in the mud-slickened path. Each step is a question, a silent plea for recognition. As you draw closer, the murmur resolves into distinct, hushed voices. You stop just at the edge of the clearing, your heart hammering against your ribs, a mix of apprehension and anticipation warring within you. A small group huddles by a smoldering fire outside the least damaged hut. They are gaunt, their clothes patched and worn, their faces etched with the harsh lines of struggle. Children, surprisingly small and silent, cling to their mothers' skirts, their eyes wide and wary. As you step fully into view, a collective gasp ripples through them. Hands fly to mouths, eyes narrow, suspicion and fear clouding their expressions. A man, older, with a beard streaked with gray and eyes that have seen too much, rises slowly, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of a worn, rusted knife tucked into his belt. You search their faces, desperately, for any spark of familiarity. The young woman with hollowed cheeks and haunted eyes, does she carry the same jawline as your sister? The stoic man, his shoulders slumped beneath a threadbare cloak, does his profile hint at a cousin lost to memory? You rack your brain, trying to match these strained, hardened visages with the vibrant, younger faces etched in your mind from years ago. But the years have been unkind. stripping away youthful features, replacing them with a weary resilience that makes everyone a stranger. Their gaze, when it meets yours, is cold, devoid of warmth or recognition. It's like looking into a clouded mirror, seeing outlines, but no clear reflection of shared history. They study you with the same intense, dispassionate curiosity, their faces revealing nothing but suspicion. You see them exchange quick, furtive glances, a silent conspiracy of uncertainty. There is no joy, no relief, no shout of, "He's returned." Only a heavy, palpable silence that presses in on you, colder than the rain. You were certain you would find echoes of your past here, fragments of the family you swore to protect and return to. But these aren't the faces of your memory. They are a stark, living testament to the relentless march of time and hardship. Faces that have been reshaped by absence, hardened by struggle, until even kin become strangers. Standing there, under the relentless drizzle, you understand a chilling truth. Glory promised can never truly bring back what time and distance have irrevocably altered. What you once knew, what you clung to, it has all been transformed into something profoundly unfamiliar. The ties of blood can fray, and sometimes, the deepest wounds are not those inflicted by battle, but by the quiet, eroding power of simply being gone too long. The old man, his hand still resting on the hilt of his knife, doesn't speak, but his gaze, heavy and unyielding, shifts subtly towards the open doorway of the hut behind him. It's a silent invitation, or perhaps a command. The chilling rain still clings to your cloak, its insistent drumming a stark reminder of the cold world outside. You step through the low archway, bringing a gust of damp air into the cramped interior. The warmth, however meager, is a welcome shock against your skin, but it's quickly overshadowed by the sudden, profound quiet that descends upon the room. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of damp earth, unwashed bodies, and the faint, comforting aroma of peat smoke from a small, struggling fire in the hearth. The space is smaller than you anticipated, barely more than a single room, its low ceiling weighed down by the years. Every villager you saw outside is now huddled here, their figures pressed close, their eyes, uniformly wary, fixed on you. The children previously clinging to their mothers are now completely silent, wide-eyed shadows in the flickering firelight, their small hands gripping worn fabric. You stand there, a stranger in a crowded room, the drip of water from the leaky roof outside the only audible sound beyond the crackle of burning peat. No one moves. No one speaks. There's no welcoming word, no offer of a seat by the fire, no question about your journey, just the heavy, watchful silence. It presses in on you, a physical weight, filling every corner of the small dwelling, making the very air feel dense and difficult to breathe. You try to meet their eyes, one by one, searching for any spark of recognition, a glimmer of shared history, a faint smile that says, "We remember you." But their gazes are flat, almost devoid of emotion, like looking into still water that reflects nothing. Your wet boots leave small, dark prints on the packed earth floor, a small act that feels like an intrusion. You feel the grit of the ground under your feet, the chill still seeping from your damp clothes, but it's the coldness in the room that truly penetrates. A young woman, her face gaunt but her eyes sharp, shifts subtly, pulling her child closer. The old man, still by the doorway, keeps his hand on his knife, his posture rigid. It's not outright hostility, not yet, but a deep, ingrained suspicion, a defensive wall built brick by silent brick. You notice how their shoulders are hunched, not just from the cold, but from a persistent burden. Their hands, gnarled and rough, betray a life of ceaseless toil. The silence isn't empty. It's filled with untold stories, with years of struggle and the heavy weight of absence. It's a silence that speaks of gritted teeth, of survival, and of a world that has moved on, leaving no space for those who dared to return. And in that crowded room, surrounded by faces that should be kin, you feel a profound aching loneliness, the kind that whispers that some journeys sever more than just distances. They sever connections so completely that even standing amongst your own, you remain utterly, irrevocably alone. The silence in the cramped hut eventually broke, not with words, but with a series of dismissive gestures. The old man by the door finally grunted, a rough sound that echoed the damp grit in his voice, and waved a hand vaguely towards the hearth. It wasn't an invitation, but a reluctant permission to occupy the space without directly acknowledging your presence. You found a small, unused corner away from the flickering firelight, where the shadows deepened and offered a semblance of anonymity. The warmth, though welcome, did little to thaw the internal chill. As the evening wore on, the muted sounds of the villagers, soft coughs, the rustle of clothes, the occasional sigh, were a constant reminder of your alienation. You felt the grime of your long journey, the sweat and dust from distant lands, clinging to your skin like a second hide. An unbearable itch started on your cheek, a persistent prickle that demanded attention. You reached up, your fingers brushing against a hardened crust of dirt, something almost coarse, alien to the softer skin you remembered. A worn, dented metal basin sat neglected in another corner, catching drips from a leak in the roof. With a quiet resolve, you moved towards it, the scraping of your boots on the packed earth drawing a few quick sidelong glances that felt like tiny, sharp stings. You dipped your hands into the surprisingly cold, stagnant water collected there. It was murky, reflecting little, but enough for your purpose. As you slowly, deliberately washed the accumulated filth from your face, wiping away layers of travel and time, a faint, distorted image began to emerge on the water's surface. It wasn't a mirror, not truly, but the still surface of the water caught the faint glow from the hearth, offering a fleeting, imperfect reflection. You stared into it, not at the dirt you were removing, but at the face beneath. Sunken eyes, heavy-lidded and ringed with dark shadows you hadn't noticed before. A web of fine lines etched around your mouth and at the corners of your eyes spoke of years spent squinting against harsh sun and bitter winds, of laughter that had long since died, and perhaps of screams that had not. Your jawline, once firm, seemed sharper, more angular, almost skeletal. A deep scar, a jagged testament to a forgotten skirmish, ran from your temple down to your cheekbone, pulling at the skin in a way that made one side of your mouth seem perpetually downturned. The face staring back at you was undeniably yours, yet it was a stranger's. It was the face of a man weathered and hardened, stripped of youth, burdened by experience. The man who had left for glory, full of fierce ideals, was gone, replaced by this grim, silent specter. You looked for the boy, the hopeful, eager young man who had once dreamed of triumphs and a joyous return, but he was nowhere to be found in those weary eyes, in that set jaw, in that haunted expression. What you saw was a ghost, a reflection of everything you had endured, and in that fleeting moment you finally understood why the villagers looked at you with such blank, unseeing suspicion. They weren't seeing their kin. They were seeing a ghost from a past they had fought to survive. And in your reflection, you saw that ghost too. You found your corner, away from the flickering fire, your damp clothes slowly steaming, but the cold seems to have settled deep within your bones. The villagers, a wall of silent suspicion, have returned to their muted activities. A woman softly hums a lullaby, barely a whisper, its gentle melody a fragile thread in the heavy air. The old man watches the hearth, his face an unreadable mask, his gaze occasionally drifting to you, then away. You try to settle, to find some semblance of peace in this reluctant sanctuary, to feel the mundane reality of this moment. Then, a sharp, sudden crackle from the fire. A piece of wet wood, perhaps, or a dry branch finally splitting under the heat. It's a small sound, ordinary, innocuous, but it rips through the fragile calm of your mind like a spear-piercing canvas. Instantly, the hut dissolves. The rough stone walls, the low ceiling, the quiet figures, all vanish. You are no longer in a cramped room, but under a vast, indifferent sky, the air thick with dust, and the sickening metallic stench of iron and freshly spilled blood. The crackle becomes the thunderous splintering of a shield, battered by a Crusader's mace, the shriek of wood tearing apart. You taste grit, sharp and acrid, mixed with the pervasive flavor of fear. A scream, raw and guttural, tears at the edges of your hearing. A desperate, fading cry that could be your own, or a comrade's final breath. Your hand instinctively flies to your hip, fingers closing around empty air where your sword should be, a phantom weight on your empty belt. Your breath hitches, sharp and ragged, catching in your throat. You feel the frantic, uncontrolled beat of your heart against your ribs, a relentless drum that warns of impending doom. Your muscles tense, every sinew coiling, ready to spring, to fight, to defend against an unseen foe. You can almost feel the jarring impact of a blow, the spray of dirt and sweat, the visceral shock of cold steel. The air in the hut, previously a welcome warmth, now feels suffocating, thick with phantom smoke and the stench of burnt flesh. You squeeze your eyes shut for a moment, a desperate attempt to push back the relentless onslaught of images. Flashing steel, the brutal glint of sunlight on armor, the bloody churned earth, the desperate, dying faces of comrades, fallen or falling all around you. When you force your eyes open again, the hut is still there, solid and real. The fire still crackles, and the villagers are still silently huddled. But their stillness is now unnerving. Their gazes, when they meet yours, are laced with something more than just suspicion, a flicker of recognition, perhaps, of the wildness in your eyes. You catch their quick, sidelong glances, registering your sudden flinch, your ragged breathing, the involuntary twitch of your jaw. A small child, previously engrossed in a wooden toy, has stopped playing, its innocent, wide-eyed gaze fixed on your trembling hands, on the scar that pulls at your cheek. They don't know what you see, what you hear, what chilling memories flood your mind. They just see a twitching, haunted man, a flicker of madness in your eyes that they cannot comprehend. This place, this home you return to, offers no escape from the battlefields. The fight may be over in the Holy Land, but the war, you realize with a cold, settling dread, continues to rage fiercely, endlessly, within you, a torment that follows you wherever you go, a constant, unwelcome companion. The past, you understand, refuses to stay buried. The lingering phantom smells of the battlefield, the cold sweat still prickling your skin, slowly recede as the present reality of the hut reasserts itself. You breathe deep, trying to shake off the visceral terror, feeling the hard earth beneath you, the rough fabric of your tunic. The villagers, though they had witnessed your distress, offer no solace, their collective gaze now averted, as if your internal turmoil is a private shame they wish not to acknowledge. The air settles once more into a tense quiet, but it's a silence forever tinged with the echoes of your past. Then, just as you begin to settle, a new sound cuts through the damp air, sharp and unexpected. It's a bell, not the deep, sonorous peal you remember, the one that used to call the faithful to prayer, or warn of approaching danger. Its vibrant resonance, a familiar comfort. No, this sound is thinner, almost reedy, carrying a discordant, metallic rasp that suggests a crack in its aged bronze. It rings out, not with confident authority, but with a mournful, hesitant clang, each stroke reverberating with a hollow echo, as if the sound itself is struggling to be born. It's a sound that holds little joy, only a profound sense of weary resignation. The villagers stir, heads turn towards the sound, their faces revealing a shared, unspoken understanding. There's no sudden movement, no excited chatter, just a slow, almost ritualistic turning. The old man, still by the doorway, pushes himself up, his movements stiff and deliberate, his eyes fixed on something unseen beyond the threshold. The bell tolls again, its melancholic voice cutting through the drizzling rain, each chime feeling like a punch to your gut, a reminder of what was and what is undeniably no longer. You can't resist. You rise, your own body protesting, and follow the old man's lead, stepping out once more into the gray, persistent drizzle. The air outside is cold, biting at your exposed skin, but the sound of the bell is clearer now, each hollow note hanging heavy in the air, falling with the rain. Your gaze is drawn, inevitably, towards the village church, its ancient stone structure now looking more ruinous than sacred. The bell tower, once proud and resolute, now leans visibly to one side, its timbers warped, its stone weathered into a rough, crumbling texture. The bell itself, high up in the belfry, looks diminished, almost swallowed by the crumbling archway. It's not simply a bell ringing, it's a lament, a strained cry from a broken throat. You stand there, feeling the cold rain trace paths down your face, indistinguishable from unshed tears. This bell, it was once a living part of your world, marking days, seasons, joys, and sorrows. It was the heartbeat of the village, a constant, comforting presence. But now, its voice is fractured, its song a broken melody that speaks only of decay and neglect. It rings out, not to gather souls, but to mourn them, to mark the passage of time over a place that has been stripped bare of its former life. And in its hollow, mournful clang, you feel the profound, aching truth of a past that has been irrevocably shattered, its memory ringing out in discord, a bitter mockery of all you left behind. This sound is a stark, audible representation of the grudges that time and abandonment have etched onto this forgotten land. The hollow clang of the church bell, a ghost of its former self, still echoes in your ears, drawing you inexorably towards the crumbling edifice. The other villagers, a silent procession, are already making their way, their cloaks dark blurs against the persistent gray rain. You fall in behind them, a stranger among shadows, feeling the cold seep deeper into your bones with every step. The heavy, splintered doors of the church yield with a groan, revealing an interior steeped in gloom. The air inside is even colder, somehow, than the outside, carrying the damp, earthy scent of ancient decay and something else. The lingering, faint aroma of burned incense mixed with the sharp tang of mildew. Your boots scuff on flagstones that are cracked and uneven, thick with generations of grime and the insidious growth of moss. The nave is mostly empty, devoid of pews, just a vast, echoing space where faint light struggles to penetrate through the grimy, broken stained glass windows. Your eyes are immediately drawn to the altar, or what remains of it. Not a grand, gleaming centerpiece, but a fractured stone slab, tilted precariously, and on it, half hidden beneath the shroud of dust and cobwebs, lies the cross. It's not the magnificent, polished symbol of faith you remember, sparkling with dedication. This cross is small, perhaps from a side chapel, or even a processional one, fallen and forgotten. You approach it slowly, your heart a dull thud against your ribs. As your fingers tentatively reach out, you feel the cold, pitted surface of the metal. It's bronze, or perhaps tarnished silver, now encrusted with verdigris and a thick layer of grime that clings stubbornly to its contours. The cross, once a beacon of unyielding belief, now feels rough, corroded, its sacred lines blurred by neglect. You trace the shape with your thumb, feeling the faint, sharp edges where it's been damaged, perhaps even broken and haphazardly repaired. It's heavy, surprisingly so, not just in its physical mass, but in the profound weight of what it represents. This isn't just a piece of metal, it's a symbol of the very glory you sought, the faith you carried into battle. But here, in this forgotten place, it lies tarnished, almost unrecognizable, a stark reflection of your own return. The cross feels cold against your palm, its brokenness a tangible echo of your own spirit, a testament to vows broken, ideals corroded, and a sacred quest that ended not in triumph, but in bitter, lingering grudges. This tarnished symbol holds the accumulated weight of betrayal, not just of a cause, but of the very people who sent you away, and the home they let crumble. You stand there, holding a piece of a forgotten God, and the cold, unforgiving reality washes over you. Sometimes, the heaviest burden isn't the one you carry into battle, but the one you pick up from the ruins of what you believed in, realizing that true glory was never found, only tarnished. You stand in the cold, crumbling church, the tarnished cross still heavy in your hand. Its metallic chill seeps into your palm, a constant, tangible reminder of all that has been broken. The hollow clang of the bell outside has faded, replaced by the profound silence of this neglected space, broken only by the drip of water from the leaking roof. Your gaze drifts from the corroded bronze to the broken altar, then beyond, to the place where a lord's banner once hung, proudly proclaiming allegiance. And in that stillness, a sharp, unbidden memory surges forward, a vibrant, almost painful contrast to the present decay. You remember the day, clear as if it were yesterday, though years have blurred so much else. The sun was fierce, not the gray drizzle of today, but a brilliant, unforgiving blaze that glinted off polished armor and countless upturned faces. You stood before the towering figure of your lord, his formidable presence framed by the rich tapestry of his hall, the air thick with the scent of beeswax and old leather. You felt the heavy, unfamiliar weight of your own newly forged sword at your hip, the cold steel of its pommel a promise against your hand. You knelt, feeling the rough stone of the floor against your knees, the anticipation a frantic flutter in your chest. The Lord's voice boomed, resonant and unwavering, echoing off the high, vaulted ceilings. You repeated the words, each syllable a solemn vow, to serve, to protect, to fight for the faith, to reclaim the Holy Land, to return with glory. You pledged your fealty, not just your sword arm, but your very life, your future, the small parcel of land that was your birthright, all to his cause, all to the crusade. You felt the press of 1,000 eyes, the collective expectation, the cheers that followed your pledge, a wave of sound that lifted you, carried you, made you feel invincible, righteous. You were a part of something grand, something eternal, a soldier of God, ready to sacrifice everything. You saw the pride in the eyes of your family, their solemn nods, their belief in the sacred glory of your departure. But now, standing in this cold, forgotten church, holding this tarnished cross, the memory of that fervent pledge feels like a cruel jest. That lordship you pledged to, that vibrant hall, that glorious cause, it all led here, to this desolation, to these empty ruins, to these silent, suspicious faces of your kin. The land you swore to defend is barren, the home you left is a ruin. And the life you forfeited in pursuit of glory has left you with nothing but grudges and the bitter taste of shattered vows. The triumph you were promised, the spiritual riches, the worldly rewards, they were all phantoms. You realize with a chilling certainty that the true cost of that pledge wasn't just your years, your youth, or your peace of mind. It was the complete, utter forfeiture of the life you once knew, leaving you adrift in a world that no longer recognizes the man you became. The chill from the tarnished cross still clings to your hands, its rough surface a stark contrast to the smooth, polished steel of the swords you once wielded. You've placed it back on the crumbling altar, but its weight, symbolic and real, presses on your spirit. The memory of your fervent pledge to a long-dead lord still echoes in your mind, a bitter counterpoint to the desolate silence of this broken church. But now, a different sensation begins to assert itself, one more primal and insistent than any memory or external cold: hunger. A deep, gnawing emptiness in your gut, a hollow ache that demands attention, overshadowing all other discomforts. You stumble out of the church, drawn back by the faint earthy scent of cooked food wafting from the single inhabited hut. The drizzle has slowed to a fine mist, but the air remains damp and biting. As you approach, the muted sounds of the villagers again fill the air, the murmur of low voices, the rustle of movements within the crowded space. You hesitate at the doorway, feeling the familiar prickle of their wary gazes upon you, a silent barrier between you and whatever meager comfort lies within. Then a hand extends from the shadows, not reaching out in welcome, but holding something, thrusting it towards you without a word. It's a bowl, crude and heavy, made of dark, unglazed clay. You take it, your fingers brushing against its cold, rough surface. It feels coarse, unyielding, entirely different from the smooth, often ornate vessels you once ate from. The weight of it is unfamiliar, not the familiar heft of a weapon or the comforting weight of a purse, but the stark, undeniable burden of dependence. Inside there's not much. A thin, watery gruel, barely warm, the smell of cooked grains and perhaps some withered root vegetables. It's bland, unappetizing, a far cry from the feasts you once enjoyed, or even the rough, hardy soldiers' rations from the field. You raise the bowl to your lips, the clay rough against your skin, and you taste it. It's flat, earthy, almost entirely without seasoning, yet it carries the distinct, bitter flavor of charity. It's the taste of survival, stripped bare of all pride, all glory. It's the taste of being fed, because you are tolerated, not celebrated. You look up, your eyes sweeping across the faces of the villagers. The person who handed you the bowl is already turning away, their face a blank mask. No sympathy, no warmth, just the grim, unyielding determination of those who have little to spare but offer it anyway, perhaps out of tradition, or a deeper, unspoken understanding of shared hardship. You eat slowly, each spoonful a deliberate act, the meager warmth spreading through your empty stomach, a cold comfort in the stark reality of your situation. You left for glory, for honor, for a God you believed in. You returned with nothing, reduced to accepting the cold comfort of a beggar's bowl from the very people you were supposed to protect. The realization hits you with a sharp, undeniable clarity. True hunger, you find, tastes not of food, but of profound, unredeemable humility, a silent testament to the vast, crushing distance between the hero you aspired to be and the broken man you have become. The bland, earthy taste of the gruel still coats your tongue, a persistent reminder of your stripped-down existence. You sit in the corner of the crowded hut, the meager warmth from the peat fire, doing little to chase the chill from your bones or from your spirit. The murmurs of the villagers are a low hum around you, an indistinguishable backdrop to your thoughts. You feel the rough weave of your tunic, damp against your skin, and the hard, unyielding earth beneath you. This is the reality, but a different scene, sharp and vibrant, fights to break through, a specter of what should have been. You close your eyes for a moment, and suddenly you're not in the dreary hut anymore. You are there, striding through the gates of a bustling city, the sun dazzling on your polished armor, though you remember the metal being scratched and dented from countless skirmishes. The air is thick, not with damp earth and peat smoke, but with the heady scent of freshly baked bread, sweet wine, and blooming wildflowers. You hear it, a crescendo of sound that swells, enveloping you, the triumphant blare of trumpets, the thunderous beat of drums, the joyous, deafening roar of 1,000 voices shouting your name, hailing you as a hero. You see it vividly. Banners, bright and fluttering, emblazoned with the symbols of your order, lining the streets. Children, their faces beaming, throwing flowers at your feet, their innocent eyes filled with awe. Women, tears of relief and adoration streaming down their cheeks, reaching out to touch your war-worn arm. You feel the sheer, overwhelming wave of adulation, the warmth of gratitude, the profound satisfaction of a sacred duty fulfilled. You are strong, unwavering, the very embodiment of the glory you were promised, the champion who returned from the Holy Land, deserving of all praise, all honor. Your stride is confident, your head held high, your chest swelling with righteous pride. Every step is a celebration, every glance a validation, every sound a symphony of triumph. Then, just as quickly, the magnificent sound collapses, the dazzling vision shatters. The trumpets become the drip of rain from the leaky roof. The thunder of drums is the distant moan of the wind through the derelict buildings. The roar of the crowd is replaced by the hushed, almost resentful silence of the villagers around you, their faces still etched with suspicion, their eyes avoiding yours. The scent of flowers and wine fades, leaving only the stale, earthy smell of poverty and neglect. You open your eyes, and the harsh, immediate reality of the cold, cramped hut slams into you like a fist. There is no parade. There are no cheers, no triumphant return, no joyful recognition. Only the heavy, undeniable truth of an empty village, a forgotten home, and the bitter, unyielding silence of the people who look at you not as a hero, but as a ghost, an unwelcome reminder of a past they barely survived. The parade, you realize with a crushing weight, was merely a cruel illusion, a fantasy born of desperate hope. The true homecoming is this desolate quiet, a profound silence that screams louder than any imagined fanfare, confirming the absolute, devastating absence of the glory you left to find. And in this utter lack of welcome, you feel the cutting edge of a bitter truth. Sometimes, the hardest battle isn't fought with swords, but with the stark, unyielding reality of unspoken grudges and a shattered dream of glory. The dim light of the hut's peat fire flickers, casting long, dancing shadows that seem to distort the faces of the villagers around you. The memory of the imagined parade, its grand fanfare and cheers, still stings with the bitter taste of its absence. You sit hunched in your corner, feeling the damp chill of your still wet clothes, a persistent discomfort that matches the heavy atmosphere in the room. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and unwashed bodies, but beneath it all, a different sensation begins to prickle at your awareness. The subtle vibration of hushed voices. They're low, almost indistinguishable, a constant, murmuring undercurrent beneath the crackle of the fire and the distant drone of the rain. You strain your ears, trying to piece together the fragmented sounds. A woman's low sigh, a quick, sharp intake of breath, the rustle of cloth as someone shifts position. Then, clearer, a series of soft, clipped words, too rapid to catch, followed by a sudden, conspiratorial quiet. It's the sound of secrets being shared, of judgments being whispered just beyond the reach of your full comprehension. You glance up, discreetly, trying to catch their eyes, but they avert their gazes, their faces turning away, some even turning their backs to you entirely. A young woman holding a small child leans in close to an older man, her hand cupped around her mouth as she speaks. His head nods slowly, a grim acknowledgement. Their eyes, though not meeting yours directly, occasionally flick in your direction, quick, darting movements filled not with fear, but with a complex mix of resentment and something akin to accusation. You see the pursed lips, the subtle shake of a head, the tightening of a jaw. There's no hostility, not yet, but a palpable sense of disquiet. A shared, silent condemnation that hangs heavy in the air. It's not the welcome of a returning hero. It's the hushed, critical assessment of a burden, an unwanted presence. You feel the weight of their unspoken words, the heavy shadow of their collective disappointment falling over you. They don't see the years of sacrifice, the battles fought, the comrades lost. They see the empty houses, the choked fields, the hardship that has clung to them like the winter fog, and in your silent, gaunt presence, they see a reminder, a living ghost of what they lost and what they feel was abandoned. The whispers are not about your glory, but about their grudges, about the price they paid for your absence. The air around you seems to thicken with the unspoken recriminations. Each hushed syllable, a tiny, invisible dart. You feel a familiar tightness in your chest, a dull ache that echoes the hollow ring of the bell, the brokenness of the cross, the blandness of the gruel. It's the feeling of being judged, found wanting, not for who you are now, but for who you were then, for the choice you made to leave. You realize that your return isn't a reunion, it's an intrusion, stirring up old wounds, old resentments, a harsh, undeniable truth. And in these whispers, in the shadow you cast upon their hardened lives, you understand that some glory is so costly, so long delayed, that it can never truly be celebrated. It only serves to deepen the unforgiving chasm of grudges that separate you from those you once called kin. The gnawing emptiness in your stomach has been somewhat appeased by the thin gruel, but the cold comfort of it still leaves a bitter taste. You sit, observing the villagers from your shadowed corner, their murmurs a constant hum that feels more like a barrier than a connection. The scent of damp earth and peat smoke continues to permeate the small hut, a heavy, familiar blanket over everything. But as the evening wears on and another slightly larger wooden bowl is offered, this time holding a thicker, more substantial pottage, a new, unsettling aroma begins to reach your nostrils. It's an earthy smell, yes, of simmered vegetables and grains, the backbone of a peasant's meal. Yet woven within it is something else. A faint, almost elusive spice, not the pungent, sharp tang of wild garlic or native herbs you remember from childhood. This is deeper, more complex, with a subtle warmth that hints at distant suns and unfamiliar soils. It's a smell that doesn't belong here, not in this cold, rain-swept village. It's an intruder, a silent whisper from lands far, far away. You take the bowl, feeling the coarse, warm wood in your hands. The pottage itself is thick, a murky blend of root vegetables and barley, a much-needed sustenance. You bring a spoonful to your lips, the steam carrying that foreign scent directly to your senses. And then you taste it. It hits you instantly, a burst of warmth on your tongue, a delicate balance of sweet and savory. unlike anything you've had since leaving these shores. Cardamom? Cumin? Perhaps a trace of cinnamon? Your mind races, trying to place the flavor, remembering the bustling markets of foreign lands, the exotic scents that once assaulted you in eastern bazaars. It's a ghost of those places, a small, vibrant spark in the blandness, a taste of the glory you pursued, now mingled with the humble sustenance of your forgotten home. You look up, scanning the faces around you. Do they taste it? Do they notice this anomaly, this shard of the distant world in their simple food? They eat in silence, their expressions unreadable, their movements slow and deliberate. No one comments. No one reacts to the foreignness. It's as if this subtle, intrusive spice has become perfectly normal to them, just another flavor in their struggle for survival. The children, too, slurp their portions with a quiet intensity, oblivious or perhaps accustomed. This isn't the familiar hearty pottage of your youth. It's something subtly changed, adapted. A small, almost imperceptible shift that speaks volumes. The spice is a vivid, almost jarring contrast to the grim reality of your return. A tiny, vibrant spark of the world you left behind, now infused into the very fabric of the home you found broken. It tells a story you don't yet understand, a narrative of quiet resilience and, perhaps, a forced integration of the world's harsh offerings. You finish the pottage, the foreign warmth lingering on your tongue, feeling a strange mix of comfort and profound unease. Even the most basic sustenance, you realize, can carry the undeniable weight of change, a subtle reminder that the world doesn't simply wait, untouched, for your glorious return. Sometimes, it adapts, it shifts, it incorporates the very foreignness you sought, leaving you, the returning warrior, as the true stranger in a landscape that has moved on without you. The lingering warmth of the spiced pottage still hums on your tongue, a phantom echo of distant lands in this cold, familiar hut. You watch the villagers, their faces inscrutable in the dim light, as they finish their meal. There's no comment on the unusual flavor, no surprised glance, no murmur of curiosity. It's simply accepted, a quiet part of their existence now. This silence, this placid acceptance, is almost more unsettling than outright anger. You notice it again, this subtle, almost imperceptible shift. A young woman, the one who offered the pottage, tucks a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Around her wrist, catching the faint firelight, is a simple bracelet. Not the rough spun wool or leather you'd expect, but delicate, almost intricate silverwork. Its design, unlike anything native to these lands. It's reminiscent of the patterns you saw in the bustling souks of Acre, small, ornate symbols that spoke of different faiths, different worlds. Your gaze lingers on it, a tiny, glittering anomaly in the drab severity of her attire, a stark testament to something new, thick and other, that has found its way here. Your eyes sweep across the other villagers. A child holds a small carved wooden animal, a camel, unmistakable, its hump distinct. You remember seeing similar carvings, toys, sold by street vendors in the shadow of desert fortresses. Here, in this cold European village, it feels jarringly out of place. An innocent piece of pagan geography. You feel a prickle of unease, a cold sensation that has nothing to do with the winter air. These are not grand, open proclamations of foreign gods. No, nothing so dramatic. These are small, quiet seepages, tiny cracks in the dam of tradition through which the East has trickled, uninvited, into the very heart of your home. You recall the fervent sermons, the fiery pronouncements against the Saracen infidels, the impurity of their ways, the unholy nature of their lands. You fought to keep those influences at bay, to cleanse the sacred ground of their presence. Yet here, in your own village, on the wrists of your kin, in the hands of your children, in the very food they eat, are these quiet infiltrations. The bitterness in your mouth isn't from the gruel anymore. It's the raw taste of irony, of a battle fought and lost on a front you never anticipated. The villagers avoid your gaze, their silence now seeming less about suspicion and more about a shared, quiet knowledge, a pragmatic adaptation you, the returning warrior, cannot yet comprehend. They have found ways to survive, to endure, even if it meant absorbing small fragments of the very heresies you were sent to eradicate. The weight of this realization settles heavy in your chest, a dull, aching throb. You went to fight a clear enemy, to defend a pure faith, but you return to find the lines blurred, the sacred ground subtly altered, not by conquest, but by quiet, pervasive permeation. And in that moment you understand that the true enemy was not just beyond the walls of Jerusalem, but in the insidious passage of time, which eroded not just physical structures, but the very purity of the world you believed you were protecting. The hushed murmurs of the villagers have finally faded into the deep, restless quiet of night. You lie stretched on the packed earth floor of the hut, the thin, worn cloak providing little buffer against the biting cold that seeps up from below. The foreign spice from the pottage is a distant memory, replaced by a dull ache that permeates every bone, every muscle. You feel the persistent tremor in your hands, a slight, almost imperceptible vibration that has become a constant companion, a ghost of battles long past, still clinging to your sinews. You shift, trying to find a more comfortable position, but every slight movement sends a protest through your joints. Your left knee, in particular, grinds with a coarse, dry sensation, like two stones rubbing together without oil. It's not a sharp, immediate pain, but a deep, pervasive stiffness, a rust that has set into your very core. You remember a time, years ago, when your body was a well-oiled machine, capable of leaping, sprinting, enduring days of marching under a relentless sun. That body felt alive, vibrant, ready for anything. This body, however, feels ancient, worn, a vessel that has seen too much and fought too long. You try to stretch your arm, reaching for an imagined weapon. Your shoulder protests with a low groan, and you feel the taut pull of muscles that are no longer supple, but like dried leather. Your skin, beneath the rough fabric of your tunic, feels strangely parched, even in this damp, cold air. You run a hand over your forearm, feeling the unfamiliar texture. Rough, almost scaly in places, a testament to years spent under the scorching glare of a foreign sun, exposed to elements that were never meant for this land. It's as if the very essence of those distant, brutal landscapes has etched itself into your flesh, drying you out from the inside. A dry cough escapes your lips, a rasping sound that feels unfamiliar, catching in your throat. You feel the tightness in your chest, a persistent constriction that makes each breath feel like an effort, a constant reminder of nights spent sleeping rough, breathing dust and the smoke of countless campfires. This isn't just physical fatigue, it's a deep-seated weariness, a profound decay that has seeped into your bones, transforming your very being. You lie there, still and silent, feeling the heavy, undeniable truth of your own physical decline. The glory you chased, the battles you fought, they have not merely left scars on your face, but have rusted the very mechanisms of your body. You are not just a man who returned. You are a monument to endurance, a living testament to the toll of relentless war and foreign climates. This body, this shell, is a permanent record of the years spent away, a painful truth that whispers, even if your mind forgets, your flesh, irrevocably altered, will always remember the devastating cost of a prolonged struggle and the foreign sun that corroded your very youth. You lie on the hard earth, the relentless cold from the packed ground seeping into your bones. Yet, within you, an insidious heat begins to ignite. It's not the comforting warmth of the peat fire, but a deep, unsettling blaze, an internal inferno that seems to grow with each ragged breath. You feel it in your temples, a relentless, throbbing pulse that hammers against the inside of your skull, a drumbeat of fever. Your skin, which just moments ago felt parched from the foreign sun, now feels unnaturally hot to the touch, prickling with a sudden, clammy sweat that chills you even further in the damp air. A violent shiver seizes your body, shaking you from head to toe, a tremor that feels less like cold and more like a convulsion. Your teeth clench, chattering uncontrollably, making your jaw ache. One moment, you're burning, your face flushed, your mind swirling in a hazy fog. The next, an arctic blast seems to sweep through your very core, leaving you rigid with cold, despite the heavy cloak wrapped around you. This isn't a simple chill from the medieval winter. This is something else, something brought back, a sickness that took root in the sun-baked lands of the East, and now blooms, virulent and persistent in your blood. You try to swallow, but your tongue feels thick, your mouth dry and coated, as if you've spent days trekking across a scorching desert. The air in the hut, already thick with smoke and dampness, now seems heavy, suffocating, each inhale a conscious effort. Images flash behind your closed eyelids, not coherent memories, but vivid, fragmented blurs of sand-filled winds, the glint of distant, unfamiliar architecture, the faces of men, fever-ridden and dying, their eyes wide with a similar consuming heat. You try to push them away, to focus on the reality of the hut, the faint glow of the embers. But the fever holds you, a cruel puppet master, pulling you back into its disorienting embrace. You hear the muted sounds of the sleeping villagers around you, a soft snore, a quiet cough. They remain oblivious, or perhaps they've grown accustomed to the intermittent fevers that plague the returning men, a common, unwelcome souvenir from the Holy Land. No one stirs to offer water, no cool hand touches your burning brow. You are alone in this internal battle, wrestling with a foe that has traveled across continents, a silent passenger within your very being. As the night deepens, the fever oscillates, a relentless tide of burning and freezing, a torment that strips away your strength, your clarity. You realize that the battles you left behind weren't just fought on dusty fields with swords and shields. Some wars, the most insidious ones, are carried within the body, raging in the very currents of your blood, a permanent mark of the land you fought to conquer. You understand with a chilling certainty that some crusades never truly end, and the fever, like the grudges, is just another unwelcome homecoming, a constant, burning reminder that some parts of the East, once encountered, never truly let you go. The fever finally breaks, leaving you weak and drenched in a cold sweat. As the first gray light of dawn filters through the hut's narrow opening, you push yourself up, your limbs protesting with every effort. The dry cough still lingers, a persistent scratch in your throat, but the internal inferno has retreated, leaving behind a profound emptiness, both physical and emotional. You feel the rough, damp fabric of your tunic against your skin, and the dull ache in your joints, a constant nagging reminder of your body's rebellion. The old man, his face a grim mask, finally speaks, his voice raspy, yet firm. Not an invitation, not a welcoming word, but a simple, direct instruction, a single gesture towards the abandoned fields beyond the hut. You understand. There is no glory here, only labor. You stumble out, the cold, wet air a shock against your still-heated skin, and follow the path towards the desolate, rain-soaked earth. You feel the cold, slick mud squelching beneath your worn boots with every step. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, a heavy, pervasive smell that seems to cling to everything. As you approach the nearest field, your eyes scan the barren, churned soil, the tangled roots of forgotten weeds. And then you see it, leaning against a gnarled, ancient tree, where a sturdy oak once stood proud, is a plow. But it's not the simple wooden tool you remember from your youth. This is different, heavier, almost crude in its construction. You reach out, your fingers closing around the metal share of the plow. It's cold, unforgiving, rough with rust and years of neglect. But as you trace its outline, a shock goes through you. The shape of the blade, its curve and sharpened edge, it's unmistakably familiar. It's too long, too slender, too finely wrought for a common plowshare. It's been crudely hammered, bent, reshaped, but the underlying form, the very essence of its design, resonates with a deep, forgotten memory. It's a sword blade. Your sword blade, perhaps, or one belonging to a comrade who never returned. The feel of the cold, transmuted steel in your hands sends a shiver through you, a sensation that is both familiar and utterly alien. This weapon, once designed for battle, for striking down enemies, for carving a path to glory, has been twisted, repurposed, forced into a new, humble existence. It's a tool for survival, for carving furrows into stubborn earth, for wresting meager sustenance from a reluctant soil. The weight of it, once balanced for combat, now feels heavy, unbalanced, a dull, crushing burden. You look from the repurposed blade to the desolate, empty field stretching before you. This isn't the valiant quest you envisioned, the glorious return. This is the stark reality of a world that has turned swords into plowshares, not out of peace, but out of desperate necessity. The irony of it is a bitter taste in your mouth. You left for glory, for battle, for a life of heroic deeds, only to return and find your weapon, your very purpose, transformed into a symbol of forgotten labor, a heavy, silent testament to the ultimate futility of war and the profound, enduring grudges of a land that had to survive without its heroes. You stand in the desolate field, the cold, rust-pitted plowshare, once a sword, leaning against the ancient tree. The biting wind whips around you, carrying the heavy scent of damp earth, and the distant, mournful cries of unseen birds. You turn your gaze from the repurposed weapon to your own hands. They are calloused, scarred, the knuckles thick, the fingers long accustomed to the rough grip of a sword hilt, the tension of a bowstring, the precise weight of a dagger. They are hands of a warrior, forged in countless skirmishes, shaped by the brutal demands of battle. But here, now, in this barren field, under this unforgiving gray sky, these hands feel utterly, hopelessly useless. You watch as a few villagers, their movements slow and deliberate, begin to tend to the meager patches of tilled earth nearby. Their hands are different, gnarled, certainly, but familiar with the rhythm of the soil, the precise way to break a clod, to plant a seed, to coax life from the reluctant ground. Their fingers move with an ingrained efficiency, a quiet mastery of their craft. You try to mimic their movements, bending down to pick up a handful of earth. The cold, wet soil clings to your fingers, squelches between them, rough and unfamiliar. It feels alien, unresponsive. You try to crumble a clod, but your grip is too forceful. Too accustomed to breaking bone, not gently coaxing life. The earth resists, stubbornly remaining whole, mocking your clumsy efforts. Your hands, once instruments of war, now feel clumsy, awkward, out of place, like ill-fitting gloves on a sculptor's nimble fingers. There's a deep, aching emptiness in your palms, a profound lack where the familiar weight of your sword should be. The absence is almost physical, a phantom limb that throbs with a forgotten purpose. You feel the cold seeping into your fingernails, the grit of the soil beneath them, but the sensation is hollow. What do these hands do now? They are trained for destruction, for defense, for the swift, brutal acts of survival. They are not made for cultivation, for patience, for the quiet, enduring labor of peace. You cast a glance at the working villagers. Their heads remain bent, their focus unwavering, a silent testament to a world that has learned to survive without the men who wielded swords. They do not offer guidance, do not correct your awkward stance. Their indifference is a sharper sting than any explicit rebuke, a silent judgment that highlights your profound alienation. You are a warrior without a war, a hand without a tool, a purpose without a place. Standing there, hands idle, stained with earth that feels foreign, you understand a chilling truth. The battlefield demanded one set of skills, a brutal, immediate purpose. But this new, old world demands another, a quieter, more enduring strength. And your hands, and by extension your very being, are neither suited nor welcomed for it. The true battle, you realize, is not just with external enemies, but with the profound, devastating emptiness that fills your soul when the only skills you possess are for a war that no one here remembers, and a glory that never arrived. The quiet truth is, sometimes, the heaviest burden a returning crusader carries isn't the weight of his armor, but the crushing burden of his own idle, purposeless hands. You feel the cold, slick mud squelching beneath your worn boots with every step. The sun, a pale watery disk, has already dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and grays. Your body aches from the day's clumsy labor, a different kind of exhaustion than battle, a deeper, more profound weariness that settles in your bones. The whispers of the villagers, their wary glances, cling to you like the damp air, a constant reminder of your unwelcome presence. You head, not for the communal hut, but instinctively, desperately, towards the shadowy outline of your own abandoned home, the one you'd explored upon your arrival. A foolish hope, perhaps, but a deep longing for something that was unequivocally yours pulls you forward. As you draw closer, something shifts in the desolate silence. A faint glow, a flicker of light, dances within the crumbling archway that was once your main door. It's not the ethereal, ghostly shimmer of distant embers, but a steady, living warmth, casting soft, moving patterns against the interior walls. And then, a smell. Not the stale musk of decay, nor the sharp tang of your own hearth's long-extinguished ash. This is different. A new, intimate wood smoke mingled with the faint, warm scent of roasting meat. Something substantial, not the watery pottage. And beneath it all, an unmistakable, rich scent of human presence, a different kind of warmth altogether. Your heart, already a dull ache from the day's burdens, suddenly thrums with a frantic, cold terror. You approach the broken doorway with a predator's stealth, your breath catching in your throat, each step deliberate, agonizingly slow on the muddy ground. You push the splintered door just enough, a thin sliver of darkness widening into a terrifying aperture. The sight that greets you is a brutal punch to the gut. The single room, once cold and empty, is now bathed in the soft, intimate glow of a small, carefully tended fire in your old hearth. A crude pallet, layered with animal hides, occupies the very spot where your marriage bed once stood, and on it, intertwined, their bodies silhouetted against the dancing firelight, are two figures. A man, his back to you, broad and unfamiliar, and facing him, her face partially obscured by the shadow of his shoulder, is your wife. Or rather, the woman whose face, even after all these years, remains etched in your memory as your wife. Her hair, though grayer, is still the rich, dark shade you remember, spilling across the rough hide. A low murmur of contentment escapes her lips, a sound of intimate solace, entirely devoid of the wary suspicion you've become accustomed to. The cold that sweeps through you now is absolute, deeper than any winter chill, more profound than any battlefield terror. This isn't just a stranger in your house. This is the stranger. And the woman you left, the one you fought for, she is no longer yours. In this intimate tableau, in the warmth of your own hearth, you are not the hero returned, nor even the unwanted ghost. You are simply, utterly, the stranger standing in the doorway, a mute witness to a life that has gone on, found comfort, and completely forgotten your existence. The real glory, you realize with a crushing emptiness, was never out there. It was here, in this warmth, in this intimacy, and it was lost, long before you ever returned. And sometimes, the ultimate betrayal is not by an enemy, but by the quiet, undeniable continuity of life itself, moving on without you. The brutal image of your wife with another man sears itself into your vision, burning away any last vestiges of warmth within you. You stand frozen in the doorway, the splintered wood of your own abandoned home digging into your hand, but you feel nothing but a profound, overwhelming cold that radiates from your very core. The small, intimate fire in your hearth, once the ultimate symbol of warmth and welcome, now flickers with a cruel mockery. Its gentle glow dances across the faces of the two figures intertwined on the pallet, painting them in hues of peace and contentment. A tableau of domesticity that is utterly, brutally alien to you. You smell the wood smoke, rich and aromatic, mingled with the lingering scent of their roast. It should be comforting, familiar, the very essence of home. Instead, it's a foreign perfume, cloying and suffocating, choking you with its unfamiliar intimacy. The heat from the flames, a tangible physical presence, reaches out, touching your face, your hands, but it offers no solace, no relief from the icy grip on your heart. It's a warmth that belongs to them, a warmth that passes straight through you, leaving you colder than before, more utterly alone. You feel the damp air outside, a chilling embrace, a desperate counterpoint to the scorching agony within. You recoil slowly, silently, pulling back from the doorway as if from a searing, painful touch. Your movements are stiff, deliberate, the joints in your rusted body protesting, but you barely register the physical pain. All that matters is the gaping wound in your chest, an emptiness colder and vaster than any winter night, deeper than any grave. You can hear their soft, contented breathing, the quiet rustle of the hides, small, intimate sounds that hammer against your ears, mocking the profound silence you've grown accustomed to. Every flicker of the fire, every crackle of burning wood, seems to emphasize your absolute exclusion, a brutal spotlight on your profound solitude. Your gaze falls upon the hearth itself, the very stones you helped lay, the blackened soot from countless fires you tended. It was the heart of your home, the place where stories were told, where warmth was shared, where a family gathered, safe from the world. Now it warms a different man, a different life, a life built upon the ashes of your absence. The hearth, once a beacon of belonging, now burns with a fire that offers you no heat, no welcome, no solace. It radiates a false warmth, a cruel illusion of home that reveals the true, unyielding grudge of time and circumstance, of a life that moved on without you. You turn your back on the flickering glow, the overwhelming cold of your heart, a tangible weight. You walk away, your steps soundless on the muddy ground, leaving behind the warmth of your hearth. You realize that some fires, once abandoned, can never be rekindled for those who left. And in that moment, you understand that the deepest betrayal isn't a sword in the back, but the quiet, undeniable discovery that the home you returned for has forgotten how to warm you, leaving you to wander forever in its cold, unforgiving shadow. The true cost of glory, you learn, is sometimes paid not in blood, but in the devastating, absolute loss of your only true hearth. The biting cold of the pre-dawn air seems to seep into the very marrow of your bones, a stark contrast to the phantom warmth you left behind in your own violated home. You walk, your muscles screaming in protest with every step, the rust in your joints a persistent, grinding ache. The path out of the desolate village is choked with mud and twisted roots, each step a struggle, a desperate attempt to outrun the searing image that has etched itself into your mind. You feel the grit of the earth beneath your worn boots, the persistent drizzle, a constant, chilling companion. But a new destination pulls you, a desperate final hope for justice, for recognition. The Lord's Keep. The journey feels endless, a brutal march through a landscape that seems to mirror the desolation in your soul. The air is thick with the damp, earthy smell of the dying winter, a heavy shroud over everything. Your breath, ragged and shallow, puffs out in white clouds before you, quickly dissolving into the gray, oppressive light. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the imposing silhouette of the Lord's Keep looms out of the mist. It's larger, grander than your ruined village, its stone walls still formidable, its towers scraping against the low-hanging clouds. It exudes an aura of power, of unyielding authority. As you approach the great oak doors, you feel a surge of cold dread mingle with a desperate, bitter expectation. No trumpets blare. No banners unfurl, no welcoming party emerges, not even a single servant. The heavy doors remain shut, as solid and indifferent as the keep itself. You reach out, your scarred knuckles rapping sharply against the ancient wood. The sound echoes back, hollow and unwelcomed, quickly swallowed by the damp, pervasive silence. After a long, tense moment, a small, iron-grated peephole slides open. A pair of wary eyes, shadowed by a thick brow, peers out at you. No recognition, no spark of welcome, only suspicion. You stand there, sodden and weary, feeling the weight of the years, the battles, the very crusades, pressing down on you. This was the place of grand pronouncements, of noble vows, of the Lord's unwavering promise of glory and reward for your service. You remember the magnificent hall, ablaze with torches, the Lord's booming voice promising land, favor, a secure future upon your triumphant return. You gave him your youth, your strength, your very blood. You fought his wars, believing in his words, in the sacred purpose he bestowed upon you. But standing before his silent, unyielding gate, facing the cold indifference of his watchmen, the memory of those grand promises feels like a bitter, poisonous lie. The very air around the keep, though imposing, feels heavy with a profound sense of abandonment, of a debt unpaid. You feel the deep, cold truth of it settling in your gut. Your life was forfeited for a glory that never materialized, for a Lord whose promises were as fleeting as the wind. And sometimes, the most crushing burden a man carries isn't the weight of his armor, but the crushing burden of a Lord's debt of lies, a hollow promise that leaves him with nothing but grudges and the cold, undeniable emptiness of betrayal. The heavy oak doors of the Lord's keep remain stubbornly shut, the narrow peephole now closed, a final, emphatic statement of unwelcome. You stand there, utterly alone in the chilling drizzle, feeling the cold, damp stone of the fortress walls radiate an indifferent chill that seems to mock your desperate hope. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the subtle, lingering smell of distant wood smoke, but also the metallic tang of frustrated anger, burning hot and fast within you. The bitter taste of your Lord's broken promises, of his cold betrayal, coats your tongue, more potent than any gruel or spice. Your hands clench, your scarred knuckles turning white as you fight the surge of despair, the urge to scream, to pound against the unyielding wood. But the warrior in you, though rusted and weary, stirs. A different path, a different kind of challenge. You reach down, your fingers fumbling for the only thing that remains of your past. The heavy, worn iron gauntlet that still clings to your belt, a relic from a forgotten battle. It's cold and rough to the touch, its metal pitted and scarred, a testament to countless blows, to battles won and lost. With a defiant, desperate resolve, you yank it free. The sound of rusted leather groaning, of metal scraping against itself, is a sharp, jarring noise in the oppressive silence. You feel the familiar, comforting weight of the gauntlet in your hand, a surge of defiant purpose flowing through your veins. This isn't a weapon, not really, but it's a symbol, a piece of who you once were, a tangible representation of your warrior's spirit, unbroken despite everything. You raise your arm, the heavy gauntlet poised, and with every ounce of frustration, of fury, of the crushing weight of betrayal, you slam it against the solid, unyielding stone wall of the keep. The sound cracks through the damp air like a thunderclap, sharp and sudden, echoing back at you, a raw, brutal challenge. The metal on stone rings with a hollow, resounding clang that vibrates through your very bones, a defiant roar in the face of indifference. It's a sound that speaks not of glory, but of rage, of the unbearable pressure of grudges finally finding an outlet, a voice. For a moment, the world seems to hold its breath. The drizzle pauses. The wind stills. Even the distant caw of a raven seems to cease. You stand there, chest heaving, the raw pain radiating from your hand. But a strange, fierce satisfaction now courses through you, a defiant heat against the internal cold. The gauntlet, once a shield, now a hammer, has made its mark. The sound hangs in the air, a stark, undeniable testament to your presence, to your fury, to the fact that you, the forgotten Crusader, will not be silenced, will not simply fade away into the desolate landscape of broken promises. You are here, you exist, and the Lord in his fortress of lies will know it. This defiant echo, you realize, is the beginning of a different kind of war, not for glory, but for the bitter, uncompromising justice of the wronged. The chill of the morning air gnaws at you, a stark contrast to the burning rage that still courses through your veins after the defiant clang of your gauntlet on the Lord's keep. That cold, unyielding stone, those closed doors, they solidified a bitter truth. Now, driven by a gnawing hunger that transcends mere physical need, a desperate craving for something, anything, resembling connection, you find yourself drawn to the bustling heart of the nearest town, the market. As you step into the crowded square, The air hits you immediately, a suffocating wave of smells that are both familiar and deeply unsettling. There's the pungent tang of stale fish, rotting gently on wooden stalls, mingling with the sickly sweetness of bruised fruit and the damp, earthy odor of unwashed bodies. You smell the raw, gamey scent of freshly slaughtered meat, the sharp, almost acrid aroma of cheap ale spilling onto the cobbled ground. But beneath these expected, if unpleasant, market scents, there's something else. Something sharp and cold. Like fear, like unexpressed judgment. A collective unspoken suspicion that seems to cling to the very air, pressing down on you with the weight of unseen eyes. You move slowly through the throng, your worn cloak brushing against coarse wool and patched linen. The sounds of the market are a cacophony, the hawkers' cries, the bleating of tethered goats, the clatter of wooden carts. But it all feels distant, muffled, as if a thick, unseen veil separates you from the vibrant chaos. No one meets your gaze. When your eyes linger, even for a moment, on a merchant haggling over a string of onions, their eyes quickly flick away, their posture stiffening, their expressions hardening into unreadable masks. A sudden hush falls over a small knot of women gathered by a basket of apples as you pass, their hushed chatter dying abruptly, only to resume in whispers once you're beyond them. The scent of distrust becomes almost palpable, a thick, invisible shroud weaving through the market air. It clings to the rough edges of the wooden stalls, permeates the very fabric of the cloaks around you, mixes with the sweat and toil of the crowd. It's a bitter metallic tang that makes your stomach clench, a taste in the back of your throat that has nothing to do with the market's offerings. You feel the grit of the crowded street under your boots, the jostling of bodies, the casual brushing of elbows. But each contact feels like a withdrawal, a subtle recoil. You're present, visible, yet profoundly absent from their world. You reach out, tentatively, towards a basket of fresh bread, its warm, yeasty scent, a brief, intoxicating reprieve. But as your fingers near, the vendor, a stout man with eyes like flint, subtly shifts the basket further back, his hand hovering protectively over his wares. No words are exchanged, but the message is clear, colder than any winter wind. The stench of suspicion, you realize, isn't just in the air, it's a living thing, radiating from every averted glance, every tightened jaw, every silent collective judgment. It fills this market, tainting every smell, every sound, turning what should be a bustling center of life into a hostile, unwelcoming maze. You stand there, a stranger in their midst, understanding with a chilling clarity that the grudges of a forgotten home are not just silent resentments. They are a tangible, pervasive stench that follows you wherever you go, separating you irrevocably from the world you once belonged to. The market square, once a bustling kaleidoscope of sounds and smells, now feels like a vast, empty chasm opening around you. The stench of suspicion from moments ago solidifies into a chilling, palpable presence, heavy and cold on your skin. As you walk, the vibrant cacophony of hawkers and chatter seems to subtly recede from your immediate vicinity. People instinctively part before you, not with a respectful deference, but with a swift, almost imperceptible avoidance, like water flowing around an unwanted stone. You reach out for a string of dried sausages, their greasy scent momentarily distracting from the chill. The vendor, a stout woman with a weathered face, sees your hand approaching. Her eyes, usually keen for a sale, suddenly narrow. With a sharp, practiced movement, she sweeps the sausages further back onto her stall, a silent, unequivocal gesture of refusal. You try to speak, a rough sound catching in your throat, but she merely turns her back, her shoulders rigid, focusing intently on a pile of withered carrots. The message is clearer than any shouted insult. You are not welcome here. Your coin, if you even had any to offer, holds no value in this place. You drift further into the market, your boots scuffing on the grimy cobblestones. A group of children, previously chasing each other with joyful abandon, suddenly stop their game as you pass. Their laughter dies, their faces turning into small, solemn masks. One mother, seeing her child's innocent gaze fixed on your scarred face, quickly pulls the boy closer, her hand pressed firmly against his back, her eyes casting a quick, wary glance your way, before hurrying him off in a different direction. It's a physical push, a clear demarcation of boundaries. You are a threat, an outsider, a blight upon their small, struggling world. Even the distant, muffled sounds from the church, a faint hymn carried on the wind, offer no solace. It's the sound of community, of shared faith, but you feel utterly divorced from it, a pariah standing on holy ground. The faith you championed, the God you fought for, seems to have turned his back on you, just as your neighbors have. You were a crusader, a soldier of Christ, yet here, in the heart of Christian lands, you are treated as if you bear the mark of the infidel, a contamination to be shunned. The very air around you feels charged with their silent condemnation, a cold, bitter wind of rejection that seems to howl, not just from your neighbors, but from the very heavens. You stand there, lost amidst the receding echoes of life, feeling the profound, aching emptiness of an unchosen solitude. To be an outcast by one's neighbors, to feel their quiet hatred, is a heavy burden. But to feel simultaneously shunned by the divine, by the sacred cause that defined your very existence, that is a desolation beyond measure. You realize that your return brought no glory, no homecoming, only the crushing weight of being irrevocably severed from both man and God, destined to wander in a limbo of unforgiven grudges. The biting cold of the winter evening offers no solace as you wander aimlessly, the lingering stench of suspicion from the market clinging to your worn cloak like a shroud. You're an outcast, shunned by neighbor and God alike, adrift in a world that has no place for your warrior spirit. The gnawing hunger in your stomach is a dull ache, but the emptiness in your soul is a gaping wound. Drawn by a primal need for human contact, however hostile, you find yourself at the door of the village tavern, its faint glow a beacon in the pervasive gloom. As you push open the heavy, creaking door, a blast of hot, stale air hits you. The smell is immediate and overwhelming. Sour ale, spilled wine, unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and the pungent tang of cheap tobacco smoke. It's a harsh, intoxicating mix, a stark contrast to the clean, cold outdoor air. The noise inside is a cacophony. Boisterous laughter, the clatter of tankards on rough wooden tables, slurred conversations, the mournful strumming of a lute, all melding into a chaotic symphony of desperate revelry. For a moment, it feels almost normal. A fleeting illusion of warmth and belonging. You step further inside, feeling the rough, uneven plank floor beneath your boots, slick with spilled drinks and generations of grime. The room is dimly lit by sputtering tallow candles, casting dancing shadows that obscure faces, blurring the edges of a world you no longer understand. Heads turn as you enter, the laughter falters. Conversations die. The noise, so loud moments before, suddenly drops to a low, ominous hum, a collective intake of breath. The air crackles with unspoken tension, every eye in the room now fixed on you, the silent, scarred stranger who carries the scent of foreign wars and old grudges. You move to an empty corner, drawn by the desperate hope of anonymity. But there is no hiding. As you reach for a small, empty stool, a figure emerges from the shadows, a burly man with a face scarred by old brawls, his eyes narrowed with drink and something darker. He blocks your path, his posture aggressive, his heavy hand reaching out, not in welcome, but in challenge. His fingers clamp around your arm, a vice-like grip that sends a jolt of pain through your rusted joints. You feel the rough wool of his tunic, the coarse hair on his hand. You feel his breath, hot and heavy with ale, on your face. Then, with a sudden, violent shove, he pushes you back. You stumble, your feet skidding on the slick floor, your body, weary and ill-equipped for this sudden assault, unable to regain its balance. You feel the jarring impact as you hit the unforgiving plank floor, the hard wood slamming against your back, knocking the wind from your lungs. And then, a sickeningly sharp crack. It's a dry, brittle sound, unmistakable. Not a tree branch breaking, not a stone shattering, but the sound of bone. Your arm, twisted awkwardly beneath you, screams in pain. The taste of dust, of stale ale, of bitter, humiliating defeat fills your mouth. The noise in the tavern erupts again, a sudden burst of shouts and jeers, but it's no longer revelry. It's the cruel, mocking laughter of those who delight in a fallen hero. And in the agonizing snap of bone you realize that some battles are not fought with swords, but with the brutal, unforgiving indifference of a world that has no use for the glory you once sought, leaving you broken and utterly alone on a tavern floor. The sickening snap of bone still rings in your ears, a brutal echo in the sudden, mocking silence that follows your fall. You lie sprawled on the grimy tavern floor, the harsh wood digging into your back, the smell of spilled ale and stale sweat assaulting your nostrils. A searing, white-hot pain erupts in your arm, spreading like wildfire, a visceral torment that overshadows all other discomfort. Your head spins, blurring the faces that now peer down at you, their eyes alight with a cruel, detached amusement. The laughter, previously boisterous, is now a low, chilling chuckle, a collective sneer that strips away all dignity. You feel the cold, rough plank of the floor against your cheek, the grit of dirt and dust clinging to your skin. Your body, rusted and weary from years of war and neglect, screams in protest, every muscle a throbbing knot of agony. The pain is immense, overwhelming, demanding surrender. But something else stirs within you, deep in your core, a primal, unyielding flame that refuses to be extinguished. It's the warrior's instinct, honed over countless battles, drilled into your very soul. You cannot stay down. To remain on this floor, at the mercy of their contemptuous gaze, is to truly die. With a gasp that tears at your throat, you push, your functioning arms straining, muscles screaming in agony. You feel the sharp, agonizing protest from your broken arm, a fresh wave of blinding pain threatening to pull you back into the darkness. But you fight it, drawing on a wellspring of desperate defiance you didn't know you still possessed. You taste blood, metallic and hot, from biting your lip, but you push harder, fueled by the cold fury that now burns brighter than any physical pain. Your legs, stiff and reluctant, finally respond, trembling violently as you force yourself onto one knee. The faces around you, previously mocking, now hold a flicker of surprise, a hint of grudging recognition. The laughter dies, replaced by a tense, wary silence. You rise, slowly, painfully, your broken arm hanging uselessly at your side, your body swaying precariously. You feel the sheer effort, the profound exhaustion, but you stand. You meet their eyes, one by one, your own gaze burning with an intensity that dares them to move, to challenge, to mock you again. You are a broken man, bruised and defeated, utterly stripped of glory, but you are still standing. The smell of their fear, subtle and fleeting, mixes with the stale ale, a grim satisfaction. You stand, not for triumph, not for glory, but because the warrior in you simply cannot, will not, lie down and die. You are a crusader, forged in a furnace of violence, and that furnace, though cold and long dead to the world, still burns fiercely within you. And in that defiant stance, in the face of insurmountable odds, you realize that some men, once hardened by battle, are forever bound by its invisible chains, forced to keep fighting, not for victory, but simply because the very act of surrender has been burned out of their blood, leaving them to stand, broken, against a world that has no place for their enduring, stubborn will. The searing pain from your broken arm is a constant, throbbing drumbeat against the silence of the night. You've stumbled out of the tavern, leaving the mocking whispers and wary glances behind, the taste of blood and humiliation a bitter coating on your tongue. The cold, damp air now offers a perverse comfort against the fiery agony in your limb. You walk, not towards your ruined home, nor the communal hut, but instinctively, desperately, back to the crumbling church, its silhouette a familiar, if desolate landmark, against the bruised pre-dawn sky. The heavy, splintered doors groan open under your good hand, revealing an interior steeped in profound gloom. The air inside is even colder than the outside, carrying the damp, earthy scent of ancient decay and the ghost of forgotten incense. Your boots scuff on flagstones that are cracked and uneven, thick with generations of grime. The nave is empty, a vast echoing space where faint light struggles to penetrate through the grimy, broken stained glass. The other villagers are asleep, huddled in their own misery. You are utterly alone. You make your way to the altar, the one with the tarnished cross, your footsteps echoing loudly in the immense silence. You feel the grit of dust under your boots, the clammy cold of the stone walls. You stand before the broken altar, your good hand reaching out, not for the cross, but to pound against the cold, unyielding stone. The pain from your broken arm flares, a blinding agony, but you ignore it, channeling all your raw frustration, all your profound despair into that single desperate act. The dull thud of your fist against the stone is a pathetic sound, quickly swallowed by the cavernous space. You stand there, chest heaving, your ragged breath puffing out in white clouds in the frigid air. Your gaze sweeps upwards, towards the unseen ceiling, towards the crumbling remnants of stained glass that once depicted saints and angels. You look at the vacant space where an icon of Christ once stood, now just a dark, empty niche. You feel the profound, aching emptiness of this place, reflecting the gaping void in your own soul. You have returned, a warrior broken, betrayed by man, discarded by his lord, and now, in this desolate sanctuary, you feel utterly abandoned by the God you served, the God for whom you shed blood and sacrificed everything. The bitter taste of unanswered prayers, of unfulfilled promises, fills your mouth. You murmur, a raw, guttural sound, not a prayer, but a challenge, an accusation. Where was he in the battles? Where was he when your home crumbled? Where is he now in your brokenness, in your profound loneliness? The silence that answers is absolute, deafening, a crushing weight that screams its indifference. And in that desolate, empty chapel, amidst the chill and decay, you realize that your faith, once an unshakable fortress, has finally crumbled, leaving you with nothing but questions, grudges, and the cold, unyielding silence of a god who seems to have forsaken his most loyal soldier. The raw, guttural cry that escaped your lips, the desperate pound of your fist against the cold altar stone, hangs in the frigid air for a long, agonizing moment. Then, slowly, inexorably, the sound fades, swallowed whole by the immense, cavernous gloom of the empty chapel. It leaves behind not just quiet, but a profound, overwhelming silence, a suffocating absence of sound that presses in on you, heavy and absolute, like a vast, unseen weight. You stand there, chest heaving, your good hand still aching from the impact, your broken arm a searing torment at your side. Your ragged breath is suddenly deafening in the stillness, a harsh, panicked rasp that seems to echo back at you from every crumbling stone. You strain your ears, desperately listening, for a thunderclap, a whisper, a sigh, a crack in the ancient ceiling, a rustle of unseen wings, anything that might signify a response, a sign, a rebuke, even a judgment. But there is nothing. Only the incessant drip of water from a distant leak, a tiny, mocking beat against the monumental quiet. The chill in the chapel, already bone deep, intensifies, seeping into your very soul. It's not merely the cold of a medieval winter night. It's the glacial emptiness of a universe that seems to have turned its back, an indifference so vast it feels like a physical force. The faint, bruised light filtering through the broken windows illuminates nothing but dust motes, dancing in the stagnant air, oblivious to your torment, indifferent to your pleas. You raise your head, straining your neck, your gaze sweeping across the dark, empty niches where statues of saints once stood, towards the unseen heavens above. You feel the grit of the ancient flagstones beneath your worn boots, the texture of rough wool against your skin. But these physical sensations are secondary, dulled by the all-consuming pressure of the quiet. The silence isn't peaceful. It's a roar of absence, a scream of abandonment, more piercing than any battlefield cry. It whispers of forgotten prayers, of sacrifices unacknowledged, of a sacred cause that has lost its divine patron. You stand before the altar, a soldier abandoned not by his lord, not by his kin, but by the very God he left everything to serve. And in that deafening, crushing silence, a chilling truth settles deep within you, colder than any rain, harder than any stone. There will be no answers, no divine intervention, no comforting sign. The heavens have closed their ears. Their silence, a brutal, unyielding response that speaks louder than any pronouncement. You realize that sometimes the most devastating betrayal is not an act of malice, but the utter absence of a reply, leaving you to face the desolate, unforgiving consequences of your choices, utterly alone, in a world that remembers only grudges, and a God who remains eternally, deafeningly silent. The deafening silence of the empty chapel still echoes in your mind, a crushing weight that has extinguished the last embers of your faith. Your broken arm throbs with a dull, persistent ache, a constant reminder of the tavern floor, of the world's brutal indifference. You walk, not with purpose, but with the aimless drift of a soul cut loose, your boots squelching through the relentless mud that clings to the village paths. The gray, watery light of a new day offers no warmth, only a stark illumination of the ongoing desolation. You find yourself once more on the edge of the abandoned fields, the cold, damp air thick with the smell of wet earth and decay. Your gaze drifts across the barren, furrowed land, choked with tenacious weeds, each clod of soil a lump of silent accusation. You bend down almost automatically, your good hand reaching out, fingers splaying to touch the ground. The mud is cold, thick, and unforgiving, oozing between your fingers with a viscous, heavy sensation. It's the texture of decay, of slow, inevitable rot, clinging stubbornly to your skin. But as the mud coats your hand, as its chilling dampness seeps into your skin, a different sensation, sharp and visceral, jolts through you. It's not just mud. It's a phantom taste, a memory of a different earth. Suddenly, you're not in this cold European field. You are back, under a sky that burns with an unforgiving, relentless sun, the air thick with the pungent, metallic scent of battle, of sweat, of blood, and above all, of dust. Not the gentle, damp dust of this land, but fine, choking, gritty dust, the color of dried blood and ancient curses. The dust of Acre. You feel the coarse, hot grains of that distant, sacred, brutal soil clinging to your tunic, baking into your skin. It coats your tongue, drying your mouth, filling your nostrils with its pervasive, inescapable presence. The wind, not cold and damp, but hot and fierce, whips around you, stinging your eyes with tiny, sharp particles. You can almost hear the distant, guttural shouts, the clash of steel, the desperate cries that were once as common as breathing. The dust of Acre, carried on unseen winds, seems to rise from this very muddy field, swirling around you, choking you, pulling you back into the relentless, burning embrace of memory. You squeeze your eyes shut, trying to dislodge the intrusive vision, to rub away the ghostly grit from your fingers. But the sensation persists, blurring the lines between the cold, muddy field of your home and the scorching, dusty battlefields of the East. The taste of that ancient dust, bitter and metallic, coats your tongue, undeniable and insidious haunting. You realize with a chilling certainty that the battles you fought, the lands you conquered and lost, they are not confined to distant shores. They have seeped into your very being, into your blood, into your senses, into the very earth you touch. And sometimes, the hardest truth to bear is that the world you left behind is irrevocably changed, not just by time, but by the insidious, persistent dust of forgotten wars that refuses to be washed away, forever mingling the bitter taste of glory with the relentless grudges of a life you can never truly reclaim. The taste of Acre's dust, bitter and metallic, still clings to your tongue, a phantom sensation against the cold, damp mud between your fingers. You're back in this desolate field, your broken arm a constant, throbbing reminder of your brutal return. The gray, watery sky overhead seems to press down, mirroring the crushing weight of your despair. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to shake the intrusive memories, but they cling, tenacious and unyielding, like the mud to your boots. When you open them again, the field is subtly altered. The distant, hunched figures of the working villagers seem to shift, to shimmer at the edges of your vision. They no longer look like the gaunt, suspicious faces of your kin. Instead, their outlines grow sharper, their movements more fluid, their simple tunics replaced by the worn, dusty leather and patched chainmail of Crusaders. You see them, truly see them, as they were. They walk through the muddy furrows, their movements slow and deliberate, not with the patient rhythm of farmers, but with the weary, shuffling gait of men who have marched too long, fought too hard, and seen too much. Their faces, though indistinct from this distance, are etched with the familiar lines of sun and sand, their skin bronzed and cracked by the relentless glare of the eastern sun. You see the haunted, vacant stares in their eyes, the hollow cheekbones, the thin, tight lips that have forgotten how to smile. They are your comrades, your brothers in arms, the men who fought by your side, who shared your dreams of glory and your nights of terror. You feel a sudden, profound chill, colder than the winter air. These aren't living men. They are ghosts, spectral figures moving through the mud, their forms translucent, flickering at the edges of your vision. They don't speak, don't laugh, don't even acknowledge your presence. They simply toil, endlessly, silently, their phantom hoes turning the barren earth, a grim perpetual labor. Their sun-scorched faces, etched with the memory of distant battles, are not filled with joy or triumph, but with an immense, quiet sorrow, a profound weariness that seems to emanate from their very spectral forms. You reach out your good hand, a desperate, involuntary gesture, wanting to call out to them, to touch their shoulders, to share a moment of understanding in this desolate homecoming. But your hand passes through the shimmering air, feeling nothing but the cold, damp emptiness. They are forever beyond your reach, eternally bound to the cycle of their unfulfilled glory, forever marked by the sun-scorched lands they never truly left. And as you watch these silent, ghostly figures endlessly turning the mud of your home into the phantom dust of Acre, you realize with a crushing certainty that the Crusades were not just wars fought in distant lands. They were a curse, an indelible mark that transformed men into ghosts, forever trapped between two worlds. The grudges you bear are not just against those who sent you, or those who forgot you, but against the very sun and sand that stole your brothers and left you, the living ghost, to witness their endless, silent toil, forever bound to their sun-scorched faces, and the bitter, unredeemable past. The phantom dust of Acre still tickles your throat. The ghostly figures of your sun-scorched comrades still flicker at the edges of your vision. You stand alone in the muddy field, your broken arm throbbing, the cold rain a constant, chilling reminder of the grim reality. You are a ghost among the living, haunted by the dead, trapped between two worlds. The villagers, those who remain, glance at you with suspicion, their faces grim, their lives scarred by your long absence. You've tasted their fear, their indifference, their meager charity, and the bitter taste of a shattered homecoming. But as the day wears on, and the light begins to fade, a new presence makes itself known. A sound, faint at first, carried on the damp air, distinct from the mournful wind or the incessant drizzle. It's a rhythmic, heavy tread, the unmistakable scuff of many worn boots on a muddy path. You turn, your gaze drawn to the horizon, where the tree line meets the bruised gray sky, and then you see them. A ragged line of figures emerges from the mist, not the phantom ghosts of Acre, but living, breathing men. Their forms are gaunt, their clothes patched and stained, their bodies bent by weariness. They move with a familiar, disciplined stride, a remnant of military training, yet it's infused with a profound, almost desperate exhaustion. Their faces, even from this distance, bear the undeniable marks of a brutal existence. Deep-set eyes, hollowed cheeks, skin toughened by sun and wind, crisscrossed with scars. They carry no banners, no gleaming weapons, only the heavy, silent burden of their own bodies. As they draw closer, you begin to recognize them, not from this village, not specifically, but you recognize their type, their kind. These are your brothers, fellow Crusaders, men who left for glory and returned with grudges, just like you. They bear the same defeated air, the same haunted gaze, the same silent accusation in their eyes that you've seen in your own reflection. Their shoulders are slumped, their steps heavy, their hands rough and scarred, but there is an undeniable sense of shared experience, a silent, unspoken understanding that binds them together. They pass by you, not with recognition, not with a greeting, but with a series of quick, knowing glances, a fleeting eye contact, a subtle nod, a shared weariness that needs no words. You feel the grit of their passage on the path, the faint, mingled scent of their bodies. Sweat, dirt, old fear, and a lingering metallic tang that whispers of dried blood and distant battlefields. It's the smell of a shared destiny, a common damnation. You realize with a profound, chilling clarity that you are not alone in this desolation. You are part of a brotherhood, not of glory or triumph, but of shared ruin, of profound disappointment. These are the damned, the men who sacrificed everything for a lie, who returned to find nothing but grudges, and a world that had forgotten them. And in their silent, passing ranks, you understand that some connections are forged, not in triumph, but in shared suffering. A silent, unbreakable bond between those who have seen the same horrors and returned to the same unforgiving emptiness. This is your true brotherhood, not of saints but of shadows, forever bound by the bitter taste of a glory that never was, and the indelible mark of a homecoming disaster. The ragged line of returning Crusaders, your brothers in suffering, continues its slow, weary march past you, their footsteps squelching in the mud, each man a silent testament to betrayal and abandonment. You stand in the desolate field, your broken arm a constant throb, your heart a hollow ache, but a flicker of something new stirs within you. It's a strange, desperate warmth, a recognition that cuts through the pervasive cold of your solitary despair. You are not alone in this profound disillusionment. As the last of them passes, his gaze, deep-set and weary, meets yours. His face is a roadmap of forgotten battles, crisscrossed with old scars, his eyes holding the same haunted sorrow you've seen in your own reflection. He doesn't speak, not a single word, but in that shared glance, an entire lifetime of war, of sacrifice, of bitter homecoming passes between you. You see his hunger, his exhaustion, the deep-seated rage that burns beneath his stoic facade, mirroring your own. You feel the grit of the muddy ground under your boots, the relentless dampness clinging to your cloak, but this shared moment feels suddenly solid, real, an anchor in the shifting sands of your despair. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he extends his hand. It's not an offer of pity, nor a gesture of charity. His hand is rough, calloused, its knuckles thick, fingers gnarled and scarred by the brutal demands of a sword and shield. You reach out your good hand, feeling the coarse, unyielding texture of his skin, the unexpected warmth that passes between you. It's a grip of solidarity, of mutual understanding, a silent promise forged not in grand halls or before noble lords, but here, in the cold, muddy, forgotten field, between two men stripped of everything but their shared endurance. No words are exchanged, but in that firm, unwavering grip, an oath is made. It's not the oath of fealty to a distant lord, nor a holy vow to a silent god. This is an oath of survival, of shared purpose, a grim, unspoken pact between the damned. You feel the profound weight of it, heavy and absolute, not a burden, but a foundation. This is the bond of men who have lost everything, who have returned to find their homes in ruins, and their glory turned to dust, but who still possess the stubborn, burning will to stand. You understand that this brotherhood, forged in the crucible of despair, is stronger than any army, more enduring than any king's promise. He finally releases your hand, his eyes holding yours for another long moment, a silent acknowledgement of the new path laid before you. Then, with a slow, heavy nod, he turns and continues his march, a silent sentinel joining the ranks of his fellow shadows. You watch him go, feeling the lingering warmth of his grip, the echo of his unspoken pledge. You are no longer just a solitary broken crusader. You are part of something new, something raw and unyielding, a collective force of men with nothing left to lose but their grudges. And in that new, defiant understanding, you realize that sometimes the true purpose is not found in the glory you seek, but in the unwavering solidarity of those who share your bitterness, a new oath forged in scars, ready to reclaim what was lost, not for God or king, but for the grudges of the betrayed. The biting cold of the pre-dawn air clings to your skin, seeping into the aching depths of your broken arm, but a new resolve, a grim solidarity, now hardens your spirit. You are no longer alone. The ragged figures of your new brotherhood huddle near a meager fire, its smoky warmth a fleeting comfort against the pervasive dampness. The silent understanding, forged in shared suffering, in mutual abandonment, is a tangible presence, a heavy cloak draped over your collective despair. You feel the grit of the rough earth beneath you, the dampness seeping through your worn tunic. But it's a different sensation that draws your focus now. One of your new brothers, a man with a face scarred like ancient parchment, sits opposite you, meticulously tending to a wound on his leg. He is not using the crude linen and harsh spirit you'd expect from a European camp. Instead, he pulls from a small, worn pouch a strip of cloth. It's finer than any peasant's weave, surprisingly soft, almost silky to the touch, and its color, a faded indigo, hints at a dye not from these lands. As he carefully wraps it around his gash, a faint, clean, almost medicinal scent rises from it, delicate yet distinct, like dried herbs and something subtly metallic, an odor that cuts through the heavy smell of wood smoke and damp earth. Your gaze lingers on the intricate, almost elegant weave of the cloth, so unlike the coarse fabric of your own tunic. It's a design, a texture, a particular scent that jolts a memory. You are instantly transported. You're not in this cold European encampment, but in the blazing heat of a Saracen field hospital, a makeshift tent filled with the groans of wounded men. You see a figure, dark-skinned, with calm, discerning eyes, moving with a quiet efficiency among the injured. He handles strange, gleaming instruments and binds wounds with strips of cloth precisely like this, applying pungent, aromatic pastes that smelled of distant, sun-baked gardens. You remember the contempt you felt then, the ingrained disgust for the infidel, for his strange ways, his foreign medicines. You were taught to despise his knowledge, to view it as tainted, unholy. But you also remember the wounds that festered in your own camps, the limbs lost to infection, the agonizing deaths. And you remember the swift, almost miraculous healing of the Saracen prisoners, treated with these very methods, these unholy techniques. The contrast is stark, brutal, a jarring collision of indoctrination and undeniable visceral truth. You watch your brother bind his wound, his movements precise, almost reverent. He doesn't offer an explanation, doesn't meet your eye, but his actions speak volumes. He has learned to survive, not by dogma, but by adapting, by taking wisdom from the very enemy he was sworn to destroy. A bitter, ironic taste fills your mouth, colder than any regret. You realize with a profound, chilling clarity that the Grand Crusade, the Holy War, was built on a foundation of fierce, righteous ignorance. And sometimes, the most dangerous truth is not the enemy's blade, but the quiet, undeniable proof that the wisdom you scorned, the knowledge you fought to erase, was often superior, more effective, more vital for survival than all the sacred doctrines you were taught. The world you now understand is far more complex and far more pragmatic than the simple narratives of glory and damnation you once believed. The subtle, clean scent of the foreign medicinal cloth lingers in the air around the campfire, a stark reminder of the infidel wisdom your brother in suffering has so pragmatically adopted. You feel the rough earth beneath you, the biting cold seeping into your broken arm, but it's the burning irony of this moment that truly chills you. The Crusades, once a clear path of righteousness, now seem clouded by the very truths you were taught to ignore. You glance at the other figures around the meager fire, their faces grim, etched with the same weariness, the same silent understanding. They too have learned, in their own ways, to adapt, to survive, even if it meant abandoning the rigid doctrines that sent them to war. One man, his face half hidden by shadow, pulls a small, intricately carved wooden pipe from his pouch. The wood is dark, smooth, its contours almost oriental in design. He lights it, and a strange, sweet, almost cloying aroma drifts into the air, a scent that speaks not of European hearths, but of distant marketplaces, of hashish and foreign pleasures. You recall similar scents from hidden alcoves in Damascus, from the private chambers of merchants you once raided. Here now, in this cold, damp European night, it's a startling, almost blasphemous presence. Another man, his eyes unfocused, stares into the flickering flames, a low, guttural chant barely audible from his lips. It's not a Latin prayer, not the familiar sounds of your childhood church. The rhythm is different, the cadence foreign, like the hypnotic calls of a muezzin echoing across a desert city. He's forgotten the words of home, replaced them with the haunting melodies of the enemy's faith, or perhaps simply the sounds that brought solace in moments of unbearable terror, regardless of their origin. You feel the conflicting pull of these revelations. The deep-seated indoctrination of your youth, the absolute conviction in the purity of your cause, wars with the undeniable evidence of your own senses, with the pragmatic wisdom, the raw survival skills, and the strange, unsettling adaptations of your fellow Crusaders. Your world, once so clearly defined by God's will and noble purpose, now feels utterly fractured, splintered into 1,000 contradictory pieces. The glory you sought, the pure faith you defended, seems a naive, almost childish fantasy in the face of this complex, tainted reality. The air around the campfire thickens, not just with smoke, but with the palpable weight of these unspoken heresies, these quiet betrayals of a forgotten war. You understand, with a chilling certainty, that the world you left was not ready for the truths you discovered in the East. It clung to its simple narratives, its convenient hatreds, sending men to die for a purity that never truly existed, even within its own borders. And the madness, you realize, isn't just in the eyes of the haunted men who return. It's in the very heart of a world that refused to learn, that pushed away the wisdom that could heal, opting instead for the comfort of ignorance, and the bitter, enduring grudges against those who dared to bring back an inconvenient, unsettling truth. The true war, you find, isn't against an external foe, but against the stubborn, self-destructive blindness of your own people. The biting cold of the pre-dawn air seems to seep into the very marrow of your bones, a stark contrast to the burning rage that still courses through your veins. You sit by the dying embers of the communal fire, surrounded by the silent, sleeping figures of your new brotherhood. The wisdom of the infidel, the foreign sense, the madness of a world unprepared for truth. It all swirls in your mind, a bitter, intoxicating brew. Your broken arm throbs with a dull ache, a persistent reminder of your fractured reality. As the first faint light of dawn paints the bruised sky, A soft sound, a small rustle, draws your attention. You turn your head slowly, your gaze falling upon a young boy, barely a man, huddled by the far edge of the camp. His face is thin, shadowed by hunger and weariness, but in his eyes, there's a flicker of something familiar, something that cuts through the layers of your hardened cynicism. A subtle curve of his jaw, the set of his mouth, the intense, unwavering gaze. It's a ghost of a face you remember, a ghost of your own youth. This boy, you realize with a jolt that sends a cold dread through your stomach, is a stranger, yet undeniably your son. He doesn't approach, doesn't speak. He simply watches you, his eyes wide and solemn, observing your scarred face, your broken arm, the raw weariness that clings to your very posture. You see no joy, no recognition of a long-lost father in his gaze, only a deep, unsettling curiosity, mingled with a quiet apprehension. He sees you as you are now, a hardened, broken man, a stranger returned from a forgotten war, carrying not glory, but the pervasive scent of distant battlefields and unspeakable horrors. You meet his gaze, trying to find some semblance of the boy you left behind, the child who once ran to meet you with open arms. But the years have sculpted him, molded him into this wary, silent youth, his innocence stripped away by a childhood of hardship and absence. You see the hunger in his eyes, not just for food, but for answers, for understanding. And in that moment, a chilling realization strikes you. He doesn't know the man you were, the man who left for glory. He only knows the shadow, the stranger, and the stories he's heard, the whispers, the grudges. They have shaped his perception, painting you as an abstract figure, a relic of a past that caused only pain. You want to speak, to reach out, to bridge the immense chasm of years and unspoken pain. But what words could you offer? What truth could you impart that wouldn't shatter the fragile hope in his young eyes, wouldn't taint his spirit with the horrors that now define you? You feel the grit of the earth beneath you, the cold, damp air stinging your face, but it's the suffocating weight of your own silence, the unspeakable burden of your past that truly grips you. In his innocent, questioning eyes, you see the reflection of a future you forfeited, a pure, untainted canvas that now threatens to absorb the dark, indelible stains of your warrior's horrors. And in that silent exchange, you understand that some glory is so costly, so utterly devastating, that it condemns not only the warrior, but the very innocence of those he leaves behind, forever linking a son's unknowing gaze to a father's unspeakable, enduring nightmares. The biting cold of the dawn air stings your cheeks, but it's the quiet, unnerving gaze of your son that truly freezes you. He stands a few paces away, a thin, solitary figure against the bruised morning sky, his eyes, so like your own, fixed on your scarred face and broken arm. There are no words, no accusations, just an immense, heavy quiet that fills the space between you, charged with years of absence and unspoken questions. You feel the grit of the rough earth beneath you, the dull ache in your joints, but it's the profound weight of this silence that presses in, a crushing burden on your soul. You want to reach out, to tell him, to explain the dust of Acre, the endless marches, the clash of steel, the screams of men dying under a foreign sun. You want to describe the camaraderie, the desperate laughter, the moments of stark, brutal triumph. You want to speak of the faith that propelled you forward, the glory that shimmered just beyond reach, the sacred duty that once defined your very existence. You want to recount the bitter taste of fear, the chill of constant vigilance, the visceral shock of betrayal. Every memory, every horror, every agonizing detail of your years away clamors within you, a chaotic torrent of untold stories desperate for release. But as you look into his young, wary eyes, you feel a sudden, profound emptiness in your throat. The words, so vivid in your mind, suddenly feel inadequate, clumsy, almost dangerous. How do you explain the smell of burning flesh to a child who has only known the scent of peat smoke? How do you describe the taste of fear and the metallic tang of blood to a boy whose palate has known only thin gruel? What glory could you speak of that wouldn't sound like a cruel, meaningless lie in the face of his own hunger, his own hardship, the undeniable evidence of your broken body and broken spirit? You realize with a chilling clarity that these stories, these horrors that are irrevocably etched into your very being, they belong only to you. They are not meant for his innocent ears, not for his unburdened soul. To share them would not be to connect, but to poison, to pass on a legacy of pain and disillusionment that he does not deserve. You feel the rough wool of your tunic, damp and cold against your skin, but it's the suffocating weight of these unshareable memories, these untold truths, that truly chills you to the bone. He shifts his weight, a small, almost imperceptible movement, and then, slowly, he turns away. Not in anger, not in rejection, but with a quiet, resigned acceptance of the chasm that separates you. He walks towards the distant, ruined fields, a solitary figure against the vast, indifferent landscape, leaving you alone by the dying fire. And in that moment, as his small form recedes, you understand that some stories are too heavy to be told, some truths too dark to be shared. The weight of your untold experiences, the unshareable horror of your past, becomes a permanent, crushing burden, severing you forever from the very son you fought to protect. The true tragedy, you realize, is not just the glory lost, but the profound, agonizing silence of stories that will never truly be told, leaving you to carry the grudges and the horrors, utterly alone, into an unforgiving, uncertain future. The image of your son, a thin, solitary figure receding into the desolate fields, is burned into your mind, a fresh wound in a heart already scarred beyond measure. The weight of untold stories, of shared horrors you can never speak, presses down on you, a profound and crushing burden. You rise from the dying embers of the fire, your broken arm a constant throb, your body aching from the cold, the weariness, the endless succession of disappointments. The cold, damp air stings your face, but it offers no cleansing, no relief from the bitter taste of betrayal and abandonment that clings to your tongue. Your new brotherhood, the other Crusaders, stir around you, their gaunt faces grim in the meager light. There's a silent, knowing exchange of glances, an unspoken understanding of a path ahead, a shared resolve forged in the crucible of their collective suffering. You feel the grit of the rough earth beneath your worn boots, the dampness seeping through your tunic, but you feel it with a new sense of detachment. This place, your home, has become another foreign land. Its familiar landscape now alien, its people strangers. There is nothing left for you here, no solace, no belonging, only grudges and ghosts. You turn your back on the ruined village, on the fading embers of the campfire, on the retreating figure of your son. You step out onto the path, the cold, wet mud squelching beneath your boots. A familiar, desolate sound. You don't look back. There's nothing left to see, nothing left to hold on to. The road stretches out before you, a dark, winding ribbon disappearing into the gray, misty distance. blending with the low, oppressive sky. It's the same road you took years ago, full of eager hope and the promise of glory, but now it feels entirely different. It's wider somehow, more desolate, shrouded in a pervasive gloom that mirrors the emptiness in your soul. The air itself feels heavy, thick with the damp, earthy smell of dying winter, but also with the lingering, almost tangible scent of unresolved grievances, of broken vows, of betrayal, all clinging to you like a second skin. You put one foot in front of the other, each step an act of pure, unyielding will, a raw testament to your refusal to simply lie down and die. There is no destination, no clear goal, only the relentless forward momentum of a man who cannot, will not, stop. As you walk, the sounds of the dying village fade behind you, the distant moan of the wind through derelict buildings, the faint drip of water from leaky roofs. They become indistinct, swallowed by the vast, indifferent silence of the open road. You are a silhouette against the bruised sky, a solitary figure swallowed by the endless horizon. And in that relentless forward motion, in the unchanging rhythm of your footsteps, you realize with a chilling clarity that home is no longer a place you can return to. It's a shattered dream, a phantom memory that forever eludes your grasp. The road stretches out, not to a destination, but into an endless journey, a perpetual exile, a grim testament to the fact that some Crusaders, once they leave for glory and return with grudges, can never truly come home. They are condemned to walk an endless road, searching for a place that no longer exists, forever bound to the bittersweet, agonizing illusion of a homecoming that will never truly arrive. The endless road stretches before you, a dark, winding ribbon disappearing into the gray, misty distance. Your broken arm throbs with a dull, insistent ache. But it's the profound, bone-deep weariness that truly consumes you now. Each step is an immense effort, a desperate fight against the inevitable pull downwards. The cold, wet mud squelches beneath your worn boots, a constant, chilling reminder of the earth's relentless embrace. You feel the grit of the road, the incessant drizzle clinging to your cloak, each droplet a tiny needle of ice against your exposed skin. You walk until the light finally fails, until the bruised sky gives way to an inky blackness, until your legs can no longer bear the weight of your broken body and weary spirit. You stumble, not falling, but slowly sinking, collapsing onto the cold, unforgiving ground. The impact sends a jolt through your rusted joints, a final protest from a body that has endured too much. The earth is hard, unforgiving, soaked with the pervasive dampness of the long winter. You lie there, sprawled on your back, staring up at the vast, indifferent expanse of the night sky, a few faint, distant stars glittering like cold, mocking eyes. The chill seeps into you immediately, a pervasive cold that wraps around your weary frame, clinging to your bones, invading your very core. You feel it in your fingers, now numb and unresponsive, in your toes, in the deepest hollows of your chest. The rough fabric of your cloak, thin and inadequate, offers little protection. Your breath, shallow and ragged, puffs out in white clouds before you, quickly dissolving into the frigid air, each exhalation a desperate struggle against the encroaching stillness. The dull ache in your broken arm slowly fades, replaced by a creeping numbness, a strange, almost peaceful release from the constant torment. The sounds of the night, previously distant and indistinct, now seem to grow sharper, clearer, yet simultaneously more remote. The moan of the wind, the rustle of dry leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, they become a mournful lullaby, a final serenade to your fading senses. You close your eyes, feeling the cold, damp earth pressing against your back, against your head, a heavy, unyielding embrace. It's not the comfortable bed of your lost home, nor the rough pallet of a communal hut, but it is a bed nonetheless, a final resting place offered by the indifferent earth. The cold deepens, slowly, insidiously, transforming pain into peace, struggle into surrender. You are no longer fighting, no longer running, no longer chasing a phantom glory or clinging to bitter grudges. The journey, the endless road, has finally found its end. And in the profound, consuming cold of the earth, as your senses fade, you realize that sometimes the only true homecoming, the only real peace after a life of relentless struggle and devastating betrayal, is found not in a triumphant return to a waiting world, but in the quiet, absolute surrender to the cold, embracing ground, where all grudges, all glory, all pain are finally, utterly dissolved. This, you understand, is the end of the road, the final, undeniable bed that awaits every journey, a universal truth for the crusader and the peasant alike. The cold, embracing ground is now your only bed. Its damp, unyielding press a constant weight against your failing body. The pervasive chill has seeped deep, turning pain into a numb, distant memory. Your breath, once ragged and shallow, has softened, a faint whisper in the vast, indifferent silence of the night. The distant sounds of the wind, the rustle of leaves, the hoot of an owl, they are fading, dissolving into an immense, internal quiet, as if the world itself is slowly drawing its curtains. As the last vestiges of warmth drain from you, as your senses retract, a strange clarity descends. Your mind, though weary, begins to stir, no longer tormented by the sharp edges of despair, but with a detached, almost serene focus. You feel a final, profound accounting begin, a rapid tally of a life lived, a price paid, a journey completed. You smell it first, a faint, ghostly scent of wood smoke mingled with long-forgotten hearths, the very first stirrings of this journey. Then, the metallic tang of rain on your tongue, bitter and cold, followed by the dry, acrid dust of acre, sharp and choking. You hear the hollow clang of a cracked church bell, a lament for what was lost, and then the brutal, sickening snap of bone, echoing the indifference of a world that cast you aside. You feel the cold, pitted surface of the tarnished cross against your palm, the phantom weight of a Lord's broken promise. You taste the thin gruel from a beggar's bowl, the bitter flavor of charity and humiliation. You see the gaunt, suspicious faces of your kin, the averted gazes of neighbors, the fleeting image of your son's weary eyes, filled with questions you could never answer. And you feel the rough, scarred grip of a comrade's hand, a silent oath forged in the mud, a desperate brotherhood of the damned. Each sensation, each memory, is a fleeting spark in the encroaching darkness, a final, rapid flicker across the canvas of your fading consciousness. You feel the rust in your joints, the fever that never truly left your blood, the phantom weight of a sword that became a plowshare. You were a warrior, a crusader, leaving for glory, a hero in your own mind. You returned a stranger, a ghost, burdened by grudges, broken by betrayal, a testament to a life spent fighting for a cause that ultimately abandoned you. As the last spark of memory fades, as the ultimate cold embraces you, a profound sense of emptiness, vast and absolute, settles in. There is no triumph, no regret, no final glory. Only the tally. The sum of it all is a stark, undeniable truth. Your life was spent, your spirit broken, for a world that simply moved on, indifferent to your sacrifice, leaving you to count the cost alone. And in that final, quiet surrender to the cold ground, you understand that the true tally of a crusader's life isn't measured in battles won or kingdoms conquered, but in the devastating, absolute emptiness of a glory that never arrived, and the crushing weight of grudges that, in the end, consumed everything. The cold, embracing ground holds you, a final, unyielding embrace. The profound numbness has spread, eclipsing the last, dull throb of your broken arm, silencing the ceaseless ache in your weary joints. Your breath, once a faint whisper, now barely stirs the frigid air, a tiny, guttering flame in the vast, consuming darkness. The distant stars overhead seem to shimmer, then blur, as if the very fabric of the night sky is dissolving, slowly pulling away from your fading sight. As the cold seeps deeper, past bone and sinew, into the very core of your being, a final internal process begins. No longer a clear tally, but a blurring of the lines. The phantom glory you chased, so bright and distant, now mixes with the bitter taste of grudges, sharp and immediate. They are no longer distinct, no longer separate. They swirl together, indistinct, like two colors merging in murky water, their individual shapes lost to a larger, overarching dissolution. The pride of a victorious charge, the searing heat of a battlefield, collapses into the cold, heavy weight of betrayal, the humiliation on a tavern floor. Each once vibrant memory, each searing pain, each cherished ideal now feels distant, muted, like a story heard from someone else long ago. You feel the final, profound withdrawal of the senses. The wind, once a mournful moan, now feels like a gentle sigh across your face, then nothing. The taste of dust, of mud, of foreign spice, all fading, leaving only a dry, clean emptiness in your mouth. Your vision, previously blurring, darkens further, contracting to a single pinprick of light. Then that too winks out, leaving absolute black. You are no longer aware of the rough cloak, the damp earth, the vast, indifferent sky. All external sensation retracts, leaving only the quiet, profound stillness within. This is the end of the warrior, the crusader, the man who left for glory and returned with grudges. But it is also the end of all. The fury, the yearning, the deep, abiding disappointment, they all dissolve into the same immense quiet. The fear life which once burned with such fierce purpose, which guttered so desperately in the cold, has finally, irrevocably gone out. There is no last revelation, no final understanding, no grand pronouncement, only the absolute, undeniable cessation. And in that final, profound surrender, as the last flicker of consciousness fades, you realize that the relentless human struggle for glory, or the bitter clinging to grudges, is ultimately just a transient flicker against the eternal, indifferent dark. The magnificent fire of a life, no matter how fiercely it burned, or what battles it endured, will always, inevitably, gutter and die. In the end, all that remains is the profound, absolute silence, an equalizer that makes no distinction between king and peasant, victor and vanquished, hero and forgotten.